Hey, this is Glenn from Destruktor. You're at the Tampa Morgue.
What's up? This is Tony, and you're listening to the Tampa Morgue, episode 65, season 2. And as always, from a studio in Tampa Bay, Florida, I am joined by the one and only Mr. Ed Webb. What is up, Ed?
Mr. Anderson, what's going on, brother?
Leaving for Florida tomorrow. Back to Tampa. It's been a couple years, so definitely looking forward to get back to that. Be nice to get out of the cold weather into the warm weather. So we've been busy as shit, man. We had Halloween last week. And that was, we got slammed again. We actually had some rainy weather, and still the kids just came out. We probably had a couple hundred again, like last year. We had a little party and stuff like that. Did you have any trick or treaters?
It's funny. My neighbors set up a table and they put out some food and they drink some adult beverages out there, and then they take their kids trick or treating because he's got two little ones like you, maybe a little younger. But it was weird. Me and my wife were sitting out there, and it would be sometimes 5-10 minutes before somebody came. And eventually, she's like, "I'm getting eaten up out here. I'm done." And I was like, it's fucked up that Halloween is just not what it used to be, man. When we were kids, it was like, where you are, obviously, it's exciting because it's new.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing here, which we were talking about in the last
We noticed
episode.
that it was all little kids, like some in wagons being pulled by their parents, not some walking, but small like yours, but, a little older, 10, 12. It doesn't exist anymore. I was talking to my neighbor and I'm like, we used to go fill a fucking pillowcase, like a pillowcase, and then go back and grab another one and pray we could still fill it. I mean, now thinking about that, my stomach hurts thinking about trying to eat all that candy. But you know what I mean? When we were kids, just imagine a pillowcase, and we used to fill pillowcases full of candy. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, we hook up the kids here. We give them the handful and stuff like that of the candy because, it is becoming a thing here. There's more houses doing it. We had a lot of kids. My two kids, my daughters, I could tell they were, they love it because it's easy to sneak and just grab whatever they want out of the candy bins. And then they're like in a candy overdose in the back. And you could just tell today they're just like laying around the house like they had a rough night. But it was awesome, man. They were two little witches. But yeah, it was like I said, Halloween, another one they come and go so fast. And, it's like you said, it is change. You can tell when you get older. When you're a kid, it's real exciting and stuff.
Well, my daughter works at Chipotle, and they were having a deal where which I just look at these prices and I'm just like, I just remember when food used to be cheap, but if you walked in with a costume, it was $6 for a bowl. And, the bowls are pretty big, but they usually cost $10-12. I dropped her off at 4:00 because her car's being repaired. The fucking line was out the door. And I'm just like, Are you I'm like, and she said it was supposed to go till 1:00 in the morning, and she worked till 11. She said it was nonstop. Like, not, and I'm just, it blows me away that people will go somewhere in a costume to get a $6 bowl of food.
What they're not doing now? They're not going for quarter pounders at McDonald's because everyone's been getting
no,
E. coli. So yeah, they're not doing that.
I try not to eat out anywhere, man. I don't trust none of this food anymore. Our food is terrible.
I was reading about that the other day. I was like, shit. But so looking forward to get back to Tampa tomorrow. We opened up the show.
40 hours on the plane. Enjoy that.
I know, man. That's the thing is like already, you're you already have the anxiety building up of having to deal with the customs and just having two kids in the airport, and that's the thing.
Like, dude, when I travel by myself in a band, I fucking hate flying by myself, not having to look after anybody. It's that 10, 12, 14 hours to Europe. There's something about it. Some people love it, and usually when we get the planes to Europe, we have nobody on the planes. I've had it to where I've had whole center rows to myself to where I could flip the fucking arms up and sleep like a bed. So it's not that. It's just when you sit up and you're like, holy shit, it's only been 3 hours and you got 5 more hours to go. There's something about blowing time on a plane. You know what I mean? Like you're just literally losing time. Either you're gaining it. Like when you go to Europe, you lose time. When you come back, you gain time. And it's just, I don't know, man. To me, it's just, I'm like, it's the one thing you can never get back. You can have all the money in the world, but you can never get time back.
Yeah, and with the two kids, it's like Con Air. You feel like you're. I love my kids, but yeah, it's like you remember Con Air, how they're like taking what's his name through the airports, all shackled up. You got to kind of keep track, and So yeah, but it'd be good to get back to Florida. Like I said, it's been a long time. We opened up the show with Holy Orgy from the band Destruktor from the album Indomitable. Came out on Hell's Headbangers October 18th, 2024, and we're actually going to be joined in about 15 minutes. We're going to be joined by tonight's guest is from the Australian band Destruktor. We're joined by Glenn Lynch, but AKA Glenn Destruktor, the guitarist / vocalist of the band. He'll be joining us tonight. This is actually first podcast appearance. A great band. They put out 3 full lengths, a couple EPs, obviously a demo and some splits. I first heard of the band when they were doing they did a split with Nunslaughter, back in 2002, but they've been around since like 97. And we'll have Glenn on tonight, but a killer band, man. And the thing with, if you look at all 3 of their full lengths, Ed, they're all solid. They're all awesome records. They take their time putting out releases. Nailed in 2009 is an awesome record. Opprobrium in 2015, another great record. And then they have the new record, Indomitable, that just came out. So we're definitely looking forward to talk to Glenn. Glad he's agreed to come on with us. Like I said, he's never done a podcast before. So, we like to get some of those kind of bands. Yeah, we like to get some of those kind of bands coming on. And Destruktor's awesome, man. And I think,
new record's killer.
Yeah, new record's awesome. Obviously, we just played Holy Orgy. So if you heard that, that's part of the record. But we're going to have Glenn on. We also have some upcoming guests next week. We're going to have Dallas Tyler Wade on from Narcotic Wasteland, ex-Nile. We're going to have Austin Thomas, the guitarist and vocalist from Vacious Depths. So they'll be playing Swarm Fest in November, the same festival we're playing. So we'll have those guys on and talk about that. Nick Goodyear. Yeah, we'll have Nick Goodyear on the week after that. So we'll be, promoting all those shows and stuff. And so we're going to get to Glenn in a little bit. I'm just going to get him set up. So
we should probably give the disclaimer too that, while you're here, don't be all, crazy if you don't see us putting up shows, because we have a lot of stuff in that month you're here to do. And it's going to be difficult. Because you're not really staying in your house. You're kind of staying in an Airbnb.
We're renting out. My dad stays in my house, and whoever doesn't know, and we rent it to him over in St. Petersburg. So there's 4 of us now. It's me, my wife, and 2 daughters, and it's just too much for a small space, because it's not the biggest of places that we own there.
Well, what people don't understand is you work around your wife's schedule a lot, and sometimes your wife
she's
takes
a doctor,
the kids.
And I am not. So
yeah, but I'm saying she takes the kids when she's off, so you can have quiet time to do the podcast, because you got to have quiet time. And and that's going to be kind of hard when the kids are there and she doesn't have anywhere to go because she don't know anything about Florida. And it's
most likely. I think what'll happen, Ed, is we'll do. I think after Swarmfest, so we play Swarmfest. We'll talk about Swarmfest after Glenn comes on tonight. We'll go. We'll talk about that whole festival at the end of the show when we wrap it up tonight. But I think what we'll do is after that episode that week, prior to Swarmfest, we'll probably be off for like 2 weeks. I'll be back in Lithuania in December. We'll start recording again. So we'll probably just, we're going to be, as me and you will be doing a lot of stuff. We'll be recording, writing basically, and rehearsing with the band and stuff like that. So I think we'll probably miss about 2 or 3 weeks. So, there's so many old episodes to go listen to, though, to go back and dig through. And when we come back, 64 tonight, 65. So when we come back, we'll be ready, man. We'll have done a show probably in 2 weeks. So, but you'll get shows up to Swarmfest. So basically the week before Thanksgiving, then we'll probably be off Thanksgiving week, and then the first week of December, and then we'll be back. So we'll talk about all that.
Even Joe Rogan takes off, okay?
Everybody takes off, So, but yeah, it's just the way it works. Well, who knows? Maybe we'll record an episode in Tampa. It's just we got to make sure if it lines up or anything. But but I think tonight's a killer episode. So everybody who's looking forward to the Destructor episode, it's going to be a good one. And we'll just go over a couple things before we get Glenn on here. I really didn't see much news today. I was looking before we came on tonight. I saw Slayer rescheduled. They'll make it a 2025 appearance. I guess this is the first appearance they announced for next year. But they're going to play Louder Than Life, which is in Kentucky, the Highland Festival grounds, for September 18th to 21st, 2025. So they, Hurricane Elaine canceled their performance this year, actually. So I guess today they just announced that they're going to be playing, or a couple days ago, probably actually, they announced they're going to play Louder Than Life. Also, Unto Others announced a North American tour. Remember, they were supposed to be on the Wasp tour and got removed. And I know announced a tour from like November 15th to December 13th, which I didn't see all the dates, but I did see New York, Texas, Arizona. I saw like Vancouver and Edmonton, North Carolina, Winnipeg. There was some dates. I think there's like 16 or 17 dates. So they rescheduled. Ed, we saw them, if you remember, with King Diamond probably 3 years ago.
Yep. Yep.
Where did we see that show at? That was in Orlando, right?
Dr. Phillips, whatever they call it in Orlando. Yeah, it was killer. It was a good arena. Obviously, King just played Tampa last week, so that was kind of shitty and bittersweet at the same time. Because I had to sell my tickets. So,
and then you had Overkill with them too, which we both are big
I would have
Overkill
loved
fans.
to see
So
Jeremy.
it would have been great to see Overkill. We've never seen them bad, so that's But King. I guess the album should be coming out of it. I mean, I guess everyone's still waiting for the announcement and stuff like that. But, I saw he released, I think, 2 more tracks and everything. So, King Diamond's touring. It's a shame you missed that one, Ed. But you did see them a few years ago, and it looked like the set list was kind of the same. So, for the most part, besides a couple of tweaks, but would have been cool to see them with Overkill. You hate to miss King Diamond, and you hate to miss Overkill. So,
Agreed.
yeah, so I mean, we have. Let me see here. I guess. Well, I'm going to mention. So I have some releases. I'm trying to,
don't forget the other big show coming through Tampa. Yeah, you forgot one.
I didn't announce it. I was gonna save the announcing shows for a couple minutes. I didn't actually. We could do shows now if you want. So we could. I only have a few. Doing. I was going to do new releases, but we could do shows since we're talking about shows anyway. So there's just a couple for this next 2 weeks that I have that I was going to mention that we did mention last week. I think we did mention a few of these. November 9th at the Conduit, Coffins, they're from Japan, great band, man. I think the last record they did was on Relapse this year. I think they put out a record. Druid Lord, Beast Plague, Pariah. That's Saturday, November 9th at the Conduit in Winter Park. I also have Devils in the East Tour, which is a Spider. This is November 7th at the Conduit. A Spider from Philadelphia. We've played Spider on this show before. Diabolus. Whoever hasn't heard, Spider, great band, man. They put out, I think it was 2022. They put out the Babe, and Bat's Blood record on Hell's Headbangers. But they're playing at the Conduit. I think they just released an EP on Hell's Headbangers too. Enter the Gates of Fucking Hell, it was called, I believe. And so they'll be playing November 7th at the Conduit. And Ed, I'm going to let you announce this one. I'll finish up these 3 shows. 2 shows. I'll let you announce yours, and then we'll play the one that we actually have an ad for that we're going to play. So I'm going to say Made of Iron is playing at the Brass Mug November 15th. That's an Iron Maiden tribute band featuring former members of Vane, Rachel, and Gridlock at the Brass Mug. That is November 15th. Collapsers, Scorch, Insectile, Othalanin. Probably, like I said, of course, I'm not pronouncing some of those right, I'm sure. That's Friday, November 8th at the Brass Mug 1450 Skipper Road in Tampa. Everybody in Florida knows the Brass Mug. And so, Ed, I'll have you announce the one you have, and then I'll announce the next one so we can play we'll play the ad after that, and then we'll announce new releases and get the Glenn Destruktor.
Yeah, so, breaking news, obviously, it's been a couple days, but it was announced that Morbid Angel on the Devastation, what are they calling it? Devastation of the Nation tour. Morbid Angel dropped off and was replaced by I Am Morbid, which I don't even know how to explain that because Morbid Angel, it's the same songs. I mean, it's almost like you're not really getting a different, it's unless you're a Tucker fan or a Vincent fan, it seems like you're getting kind of you're getting Morbid Angel either way because that's what they're playing is Morbid Angel. So, but yeah, in case anybody didn't see it, Morbid dropped off. All the same bands, Suffocation, Uada, all the opening bands are the same. Just I Am Morbid is taking the place of Morbid Angel.
That's the Orpheum, right?
Yes, and it's on the 15th, the same day as the show you just announced at the Brass Mug.
So. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I noticed that actually when I saw the one you're talking about. I saw that announcement, and I actually was when I was putting the shows together for our show. I noticed that, but that's going to be at the Orpheum in Tampa, and I'm going to announce this next show, which we've already announced on this show, and we're actually going to play an ad for it. We give away tickets for this show actually on the Instagram page. If everybody wants to go visit the Instagram page, you'll see it there. The contest rules and stuff. You get two pair of tickets. Well, a pair of tickets for this gig. It's King's X. Ed, what's the name of it? So it's the Capitol Center in Clearwater, but what's the, isn't there a name behind it?
Yeah, the show's at the Billheimer Theater.
There you go. Capitol Center in Clearwater, Florida, December 5th, with guests Sound and Shape. And like I said, if you want to get tickets to that, you can go to our Instagram page, and we're giving away a pair. So you can check that out. And what we'll do, Ed, is we'll play the ad for the show. It's like 30 seconds. And then I'll announce the new releases coming out this week and this past week. And then we'll go on, man, and we'll get Glenn on here and get the show started. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Cool, man. So this is the ad for the King's X show. We'll be right back on the Tampa Morgue after this ad to talk about some new releases that came out and are coming out.
King's X makes their Billheimer Capitol Theater debut on December 5th, 2024 with special guest Sound and Shape. Celebrating over 4 decades of music, the trio will perform select tracks from their new album, 3 Sides of One, as well as highlighting tracks spanning their entire career. Don't miss King's X with Sound and Shape at the Billheimer Capitol Theater December 5th. Tickets on sale now. Visit rutheckerdhall.com.
And there you go. If you want to get King's X tickets, visit the Tampa Morgue Instagram page. And we're giving away a pair, like I said. So, Ed, I'm just going to bang out these releases really fast, and then we can get Glenn on here. Whoever's waiting to hear that interview, we can get that started. And I'm going to say here, let me get organized here, because that's one thing I am not. Organization is not it's not my skill, as you know. Ed knows firsthand, actually, about this. He's dealt with it. So Public Intoxication out of Spain, crossover band. They have an EP coming out called Ritual Cave. Let me see here. They put out a full-length 2023 called Last Brain Cell. They formed in 2017. They have a new EP coming out, Viper Witch, which is a heavy metal band from Denver, Colorado. They have an album coming out called Witch Hunt Road to Vengeance that actually came out on Halloween. Came out on Stormspell Records, and it's their debut full-length. Grave Cult from France, which is black and roll band, I should say. The album was Full Moon Fever is the album title. Label is Frozen Records. It's a follow-up to the band's 2023 self-titled debut record. And let's see here. They put out an EP in 2022 called Wait to Slaughter. Band is called Grave Cult. And the album is called Full Moon Forever. Plague Dweller from Australia, death metal band. You see here, they're putting out Devoured by the Cosmic Void. It's their debut. It's 9 tracks. They formed in 2020. Plague Dweller. Cryptic Blood is a death doom metal band from Germany. Name of the new record is Necrotic Flesh Bacteria. Third full length follow up to the 2019 record, Outcome of Obnoxious Science. And I have a few more here. Summoning Death from Mexico, death metal band. Album is called Tombs of the Blind Dead. Label Chaos Records, came out on Halloween. Band's put out a couple demos, 2 demos, 3 full lengths, 1 EP. A lot of horror movie focus with this band. They formed in 2014. Band's called Summoning Death. Again, album is called Tombs of the Blind Dead. Alien Carcass from Australia, black death metal band. The name of this record is Entropic Visions of the Celestial Heaven. It's their first full length. Came out on Halloween also. They put out demo, split 2 EPs. They formed in 2020. Goratorium from Los Angeles, California. Death grind band. Album Violence. Came out on Halloween also. Second full length. And let me see here. Holy Death from Las Vegas, Nevada. Doom death metal band. Sad But True is the name of the EP. Came out on Halloween. They've had a bunch of releases, a bunch of EPs they've done, formed in 2019. Let me see here. Frostbite, black metal band from Montreal. Name of the record is Relentless Grief. Black Lion Records from Sweden. Third full-length follow-up to their Relentless Grief record. This is their Relentless Grief record, so I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So maybe this is the only record. But, yes. Let me see here. Black Lion. Yeah, so that's the new record comes. It came out on November 1st. Totally botched that release, Ed. Assassin from Germany. That band's been around for a while. They formed in like 85. You probably remember Assassin, Ed.
Yep.
They got an EP called Skull Blast coming out on Massacre Records out of Germany. they put out, I think, 6 full lengths, 5 demos, and now an EP. But Assassin, there was so many releases there. I was spitting out at once that I was kind of choking a little bit.
Yeah, you forgot one that I expected you, because when we saw him, you fell in love with him.
Tribulation.
Yes, sir. They came out with a new record.
I saw that, but what's weird is, have you heard, when we saw them, that was with who? Who did they play with? Was
Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse. It was kind of I don't know if they've changed a little bit from what I need to check out. I saw they did have one. I'm surprised I didn't mention that too, but we saw them. What year was that, do you think?
Oof. God, that had to be 2018, 19. Yeah, 18. Because that was when Cannibal toured with Behemoth.
Because that was like Children of the Night, I think, that tour for them, for Tribulation.
It was a long time ago, man. I mean, because, it was Janice Landing. I remember that for sure.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. We actually went with Scott from the Crucifix, was with us, if you remember correctly.
We did, yeah. And then we saw a couple other dudes we knew there, Pajoni and...
Oh, that's right. Dudes. That was that same show. Yeah.
Yep. Well, anytime you get a metal band or a death metal band at Janice Landing, you're going to run into who's who, because if it's big enough to play Janice Landing, everybody's coming. So,
especially Cannibal. I mean, you always, Cannibal shows are always packed. So yeah, I mean that's it. I think let's get Glenn on here, and we'll come back at the end of the show just for a couple minutes. Me and Ed will wrap it up, and we'll after we say goodbye to Glenn later, we'll just announce Swarm Fest, which is coming up. We've been announcing it on every show. It's also going to be the next couple shows. We'll have some guests from Swarm Fest on, like we said. So let's get Glenn on, Ed, and we'll get we'll get the show started with him. Anything else you want to mention?
Nope. Let's get him on. I'm ready. I'm excited.
There you go. Here, let's see here. 1 second, everybody. We're gonna play one more track, and then while we get Glenn set up here, I hope we're gonna play one more track if everything is working right. There you go. So now we're gonna play Destruktor, Violence Unseen, from the Nailed record that came out September 20th, 2009 on Hell's Headbangers. When we come back, we'll be back with Glenn from Destruktor. So again, this is Destruktor, Violence Unseen. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue with Glenn right after this track.
Unseen,
back on the Tampa Morgue, and we are joined now with Glenn from Destruktor. And Glenn, now we are really, I cannot believe you have not done a podcast before. That's the first thing. I mean, this is your first one. And for those who don't know, we're going to cover a lot of history with Glenn and stuff like that. But you're talking about a band that goes back to if you go back from the beginning, actually, before they even changed their name to Destructor, you're going to 95. But man, so what's kept you from doing these kind of interviews?
Probably two or three reasons, and probably more than that even. But first, well, shit, I haven't been one to really embrace the technology side of things that much over the years. We only got Instagram, the band account, done in the last 3 to 6 months, and sort of the label were keen for us to get that done finally, and obviously everyone else does. So I just haven't been keen to jump on those sort of things. Second, the demand hasn't been there. I haven't been really approached. I've done some radio interviews over the years, but not actually in this sort of modern digital world. And I guess because the program was released before podcasts were as big a thing, now that Indomitable's out, it's probably a little, there's a bit more interest again, and there's more people doing podcasts. That's a more common way for people to listen to shit these days. So I guess eventually it was going to come our way in that regard, and it has.
You mentioned Indomitable, which is a fucking great record. We'll talk about that. I mean, that's one thing we'll talk about with Destructor, and people will notice as we go through your history. You guys don't put out tons of releases, but the ones you've put out, especially when I go look at the 3 full lengths, top quality. And you talk about the podcast. I know you were when we told you we weren't doing video, that was, and we deal with people that write us like, hey, why don't you guys do video? Why don't you guys do video? And I'm really glad to see that you were glad we're not doing video too, because, it's got to leave a little bit of, like we were talking about before we started recording, man, when we were growing up, there was a little bit of mystery behind bands. Like you didn't just see like, everybody in their pajamas or like doing what the fuck ever, it was like you had to think a little bit. I mean, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, totally. We in this modern age, people can stalk profiles and see a little bit more about someone if they really want to chase it up. But I don't even reveal too much of myself in that world, to be honest, either. But that was part of the magic when I was 15, 16, hearing Emperor and Dark Throne and getting 3-month-old information in some smaller magazine, and all you would get was an occasional picture. I mean, getting an underground video was like pretty wild, to be honest. Like to get your hands on some of that shit was, I don't know, was sort of unimaginable almost, if you know what I mean. But somehow, you find the right connection to add access to shit. But yeah, there's not fucking, you can't go on on the web, on the internet and see footage of me walking down the freaking street and shit. Like, I'm not really out there to expose all those aspects of myself. And I think that part of the magic with the old stuff was, probably what built part of that attitude.
I definitely agree. And, it's especially all of us, we're a little bit different in ages, all of us, but we all kind of grew up in that same time period where, like you said, you would look at a magazine and you might see a small band photo with a band name. And then your job is to find out who that band is. And, or if you open up a cassette tape, we were talking about this on the last episode, me and Ed, you saw like a thanks list and you're like, you saw a band mentioned by a band you listened to. Well, in your mind at least in my mind at like 14 or 15, I was like, I got to find out who the hell this band is. And like, you just seen that the album cover and you're like, well, fuck man, I want to know more about this. Now it takes 2 seconds. When an album comes out, you hop on Spotify and there it is, you can hear, and that also relates to, with tracks, like, back in the day, you listen to the first track to the last track. Now it's people are listening to 1 or 2 tracks and then skipping through. I mean, I think that's a big difference too.
Attention spans are clearly well and truly fucked, to be honest. People fucking can't even sit there and watch a gig with their own eyes. Have to go to their phone, fucking check their fucking messages. Fucking demand shit in the mail in 2 fucking days. Oh, fucking yeah. I mean, fortunately, we don't have that. We don't have a heap of that shit. But you see some of it going on at some gigs, and it's fucking ridiculous.
I was going to ask you about that. Does that drive you crazy? Like when you're at a show and everyone's on their phones?
Fortunately, it doesn't happen a lot with us. Like, I've got to be honest, probably just watching with their own eyes, or just we sort of attract a crowd that aren't as interested in that sort of shit. I don't know. But, you know, I mean, it's good to get a little bit of footage here and there of gigs and stuff. You know, a couple of friends might do that sort of stuff, but it's definitely not a big issue at my end, actually. But what I see at certain times, certain people for certain songs, this is the fucking most important part of the whole gig. Let's fucking film it and look at it through a camera. Like, yeah, fucking good one. Doesn't frustrate me playing on a personal level, but as far as the wider community and the some of the bigger shows and gigs and situations, well, I mean, I think it's much better to see with your own eyes.
I definitely agree. And again, we appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with us today on the Tampa Morgue. And so I want to start out before we get into your history. You're born in Victoria, Australia?
Yeah, so Victoria's the state. Melbourne is the capital of Victoria. And then I grew up in a place called Kangaroo Flat, which is about 100 approximately 100 mile from Melbourne, if you want to talk miles, but about 150, 140k from Melbourne. So we're sort of away from the big city sort of stuff. We had a smaller town when I was growing up. It was probably had a population of 50, 60,000. But yeah, I spent most of my first 30 years of my life there.
I was going to ask you what, like, not musically, but like, what memories do you have of growing up in Victoria as a kid? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Oh, for me, it was mostly got a kick out of sport and music, and that was it. I mean, music was the central core of any joy I got, you know, or not all the joy, but that was, you know, the sort of the happy place, if you want to put it that way. So, I mean, I grew up around music and stuff. Dad played guitar, Mum sung, Mum could play a few chords, a little bit of piano. Always music going on in the house.
I was going to ask you about that. We talked to Glenn before the show and said, hey man, if we're incorrect on anything, correct us, because, you know, we're trying, obviously, you know, Glenn doesn't do a million interviews, so it's kind of one reason we really wanted to get him on is because there's a lot of questions that I had. So I know you grew up, like you said, in a musical household, and your father was a guitar player, and you were also around music a lot. So you were like a rock fan going back to 4 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. So I was born in 78, and about there's photos of it. Oh, Kiss is sort of what got me going. Probably, you know, as far as something I really, really grabbed hold of. Had the Kiss Killers tape from a young age, because Kiss went really big in Australia. After they died in America, you know, around that night, around the disco era. I was made for loving you and all that sort of stuff, and obviously Australia, like Unmasked and stuff, was still really popular in Australia. So Shandy and Talk to Me and songs like that were pretty popular. So I remember being about 4. Mum had gone to bed. It was late, and I knew Kiss were going to be on the late night TV show. And I remember sitting in the corner of the lounge room, TV on, and watching Kiss live. And I remember seeing Gene Simmons spit blood and shit, and you know, it sort of scared me, but I loved it at the same time. And probably seeing some of those fucking movies I shouldn't have seen as a 5 or 6 year old probably didn't scare me away from it either. So Kiss was the big one I gravitated to. I liked the different music though, but Kiss was the main one.
The first albums you ever owned was Kermit the Frog, Rainbow Connection, and a copy of, like you said, Killers on cassette. Is that factual?
Yeah, well, Kermit the Frog, I think I might have been 3 or something, but I vaguely remember that being a part of me and my mum's collection, but I remember that was the record I had in there. I think that got stolen. And then, Kiss Killers would be the first cassette I got for sure.
And your favorite Kiss albums is what, the 74 and Revenge?
Yeah, but you can listen to any of their albums and find a few bangers, eh? Then Kiss Alive, Kiss Killers, probably the first one. And then Kiss Alive 2 was the first picked up on record at a flea market, garage sale thingy. about 50 cents. And then I got in a Rocket Ride and shit like that. And then someone else gave me Love Gun and then a Kiss album. And then that's where I started, probably a few years after I got into Kiss as a 4-year-old, a bit later on, sort of appreciated songs like Black Diamond, Strutter, Juice, 100,000 Years. So that's for the classics there, Cold Gin. I mean, and then so that always stands out. And then Revenge, I think it's just a really good hard rock album and one of their heavier ones. And it was I was about 14, 15 when it came out. So I was just sort of being a Kiss fan all those years. It was sort of the close to the end of my clean singing era because I was starting to gravitate to the more aggressive vocals. But that still held a good place in my heart, my special place in my heart. Pretty much one of the most listened to albums I've had. But I could talk about Kiss for a long time. I mean,
what's your favorite solo album out of all of them?
Ace Frehley.
Yeah, that and Paul, I would guess, would be the two picks for me. I mean, the Chris one, I just couldn't, I get what he was doing, but I just couldn't. But yeah, I have to say that. And do you remember the first, not even even rock music, so to say, but do you remember the first music that really caught your ear as a kid? Like when you first heard it, you're like, you going back to even 3 or 4, the first song that you really remember, just catching your attention.
Fucking. Queen would have popped into it somewhere. Thinking something like shit. Maybe something like Crazy Little Thing Called Love, or another one, Bite the Dust. That's probably around the 80s. That'd be around that era, around that 3-4 era. So Queen. First song, you got me. I've always thought about first album, but first song, shit. Queen. There's a photo of me singing Harry Nilsson, I Can't Live Without You. When I was 5, I belted that song out when I was young. I knew Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was bloody 4 or 5 again. So Time Warp would have been in the mix. But I don't think I can recall maybe something at 2. So I'm going to have to sort of work more around that 3 or 4 age and thinking Time Warp, a bit of Queen, but A Night at the Opera I was pretty familiar with, so even Bohemian Rhapsody probably.
And you also, speaking of Queen, the first concert you ever saw, because I know 85, Queen did 8 shows in Australia in April, and that was actually the first show you ever saw in 85 was Queen on the Works Tour?
Yep. I was 7 years old. Mum took me to that one. Very lucky to have seen them. I don't imagine there'd be, there could be, but a younger person who saw Queen with Freddie Mercury in Australia. I remember hearing my mum's friend come into our house and said, "Hey, Wendy, did you hear? Queen's coming to Melbourne." And she's straight away was like, "I'm going to go to that." And I was like, I want to go too. And she actually got me tickets to that. And I went to that one. I've still got memories of the lights flashing for Radio Gaga and, curtain drawing and things like that. But, yeah, I guess I was always bound to be involved with music somewhat with the Kiss thing and the Queen thing from those ages.
And, you mentioned your father being a guitar player. So you started learning chords at the age of 10?
Yeah. I always had a guitar around the house, but probably knew a basic rock beat on a drum kit before I learned a chord on the guitar. But yeah, once I got to grade 5, primary school, and they were having lessons. They were offering guitar lessons for students, and I jumped on board and learned an E minor, and away we went.
You started doing scales and soloing at 14, 15 in high school?
A little bit. So apart from that, when I was 10, where there was those just a few, that 1 year of sort of once a week lessons. I used to play with my friends who lived next door and across the road. But when I was about 14, 15, there was Gary Dewar. He's a renowned guitar teacher up in Bendigo, where I grew up. Part of Kangaroo Flat's one of the suburbs of Bendigo. Unfortunately, he passed away quite a while ago. Too young, but he started doing lessons at our school and was very, he was quite quite reasonable with his price, and so it was actually affordable for me to go and just spend 1 year at school when I was 14, just learning, still playing chords, blues stuff, a few chord progressions, and just basic sort of more blues scales, a few pentatonic things and bits and pieces. But I never really elaborated or expanded on it a lot more from that point. I mimicked a few Metallica solos, and probably better off with a blues solo than with a metal solo in most cases, probably.
And you're listening. You mentioned Metallica, so like when you're like most of us, you started out with Metallica, AC/DC. Actually, were you a Bon guy or a Brian guy?
Brian was the one that I first got into as far as I liked Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution and Hell's Bells. I mean, Hell's Bells was the B-side song to the Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. And that single, that was part, in the household collection, and I always liked the B-side being Hell's Bells, like Skyhook's horror movie. It was always sort of anything a bit of the darker side that I might gravitate to naturally, without even knowing it at the time. But I'd prefer overall Bon.
Yeah. And because those, I noticed I was reading one thing with you, and you also mentioned, it's funny because I see a lot of people not give this band credit. And I know when I first heard the 87 album, and I know Ed, we've talked about this, Ed, too, before, Guns N' Roses, right? Appetite for Destruction. A lot of people are like, fuck Guns. When I don't know about you guys, but when I was a young kid and I first heard Appetite for Destruction, and yeah, you don't ever have to hear certain songs again from that record, but that was for being a kid. I don't know if you dealt with the same thing, Glenn, but that was a great record as a kid, and an angry, pissed off record when you're that young.
Massive impact ultimately for me. So you already heard about the sort of the bit of AC/DC and Kiss and Queen and stuff. But when I was, I used to get up early in the morning around the age of 10 and watch the Rage and watch the top 50, which is went from like 6 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock, and played the top 50 every week. And I remember fucking Poison, Nothing But a Good Time come on. And I thought, oh yeah, this is all right, eh? Fucking I taped it on my video cassette recorder, taped that. And I think 2 songs later was Gunner's Sweet Child of Mine. Now, those, I hadn't heard them in Bendigo. I think they were getting regular rotation on the commercial stations and shit down Melbourne, but we didn't pick up those stations. So it took me to get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning because it got to like, it was 47 in the charts or something. So it was the first I'd ever heard of it, seen it, knew of it. And I went past a magazine shop, like a newspaper, a newsagent, and I walked past this magazine that said heavy metal special, Poison, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, and I went, I'm going to buy that. And I'm a metalhead. Like I pretty much decided from that, Nothing But a Good Time, Sweet Child of Mine, and then also liking a bit of AC/DC and a bit of Bon Jovi and stuff, and then being in that heavy metal special because glam was advertised as heavy metal. Back, around 88, 89. But Gunners, man, like, that stood the test of time better than the other ones, I mean, that set me on path to Skid Row and then on to Metallica and then Creator, and there we go, But Appetite for Destruction, I was 10. I must have caught hold of it just around the turn of 87 through to 88. I reckon I would have heard it 88. I got it for Christmas. I got it for my birthday. In 89, and then listen. I was familiar with Welcome to the Jungle, and then On Come It's So Easy.
Still one of my favorite songs from that record. It's so easy. It's just
being the only kid and having this album that goes, why don't you just fuck off?
Yeah.
Like,
back then there wasn't a bunch of that shit like that. That was a street record right there when you first heard that as a kid. I mean, My Michelle. I mean, the song Rocket Queen. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever heard the story behind that song is what the girl moaning was Steven Adler's girlfriend.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't show up to the studio and Axl hooked up with her and recorded. There's a lot of stories, and that was a whole different time period. And I was a youngster at that time, and I remember there was a movie called The Deadpool. I don't know if you remember this, Glenn. Dirty Harry, The Deadpool. And Welcome to the Jungle was one of the soundtrack songs on that record. Ed, you remember that, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't talk about fucking Dirty Harry because I don't know about Dirty Harry apart from Go Ahead and Make My Day.
Yeah, well, that was like the song for the soundtrack, right? That was like the main one, I believe.
Yes.
on that one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm not
Which is
really good with the
crazy.
movie side of things.
Yeah, that was the main thing. But that album back then was like, I hear people now slag it, and I'm like, yeah, but you got to remember when you're 14 and you hear Appetite for Destruction, there wasn't much stuff out like that at that time period when you're that young.
Well, I can tell
What was
you,
your first?
I remember I was telling my wife this the other day that we were in high school. I don't think you were in high school yet when Appetite came out.
I was not.
But
No, neither of us were. Me or Glenn were not.
They opened for Motley Crue, and I remember everybody in high school had, you know, Guns or Bust on the back of their, on soap. Remember how people used to write on their cars in soap,
Oh, yeah.
And I could tell you half the high school went to that concert, and I'm just thinking, I remember going to that show, and I want to say it was the Girls' Girl. It might have been, I'm pretty sure that was the tour, but just thinking about that, Guns N' Roses absolutely blew Crue off the stage. It was a completely different time, and that record went from zero, because you remember, I don't. We talked about this with Bobby, about the MTV, but
Bobby
remember
Gustafson,
Axel,
yeah.
yeah, and when Axel did an interview, it was him and Slash, and they were talking about how he got in Guns N' Roses, and it's just amazing that they didn't even want him. Like, if that lineup didn't exist, that record would suck. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's just a staple in time, and that record probably will never ever wear out. It's kind of like Jimi Hendrix or the Doors. Or when you hear them on the radio, you don't go, "Oh fuck, turn that song off." You still listen to it because they hold the test of time. That record, when Guns N' Roses come on, you don't change the channel. You know what I mean? Even though you heard the song a million times, they're just one of those bands. Even Poison, like you said, it's just as cheeseball as it is now, that when I look back and go, wow, that was some fucked up cuck rock. But how many chicks dug that shit? And you know what I mean? And when you listen to it, it was actually rock and stuff, like Rat. All those bands absolutely, the hair metal stuff, I'm glad it exists, because it was as metal as we want to be. Without it, we probably wouldn't be here.
And we've talked
Yeah.
to some of the metal guys, the death metal guys, and they used to say they used to go to those shows to try to pick up the girls. Maybe if they didn't even like the bands, they would go to those shows because that's where the girls were at. I mean, do you remember your first guitar, Glenn? Did your dad give it to you, or
First guitar, some vague toy guitar, some other beaten up sort of half guitar, probably when I was 6 or 7. But when I was doing my lessons, I remember taking my mum's guitar to school. Yep, I was my mum's, dad's. So I didn't really have a guitar. I just had mum and dad's guitar, acoustic guitars, and dad had an electric. He had a double neck Ibanez thing, actually, a bass on the top and a 6-string on the bottom. But I didn't really touch much. I touched it just a little, but it was mostly just the parents' guitars, and then so I just played acoustic until we got to about 15, and my I got passed on my cousin's first electric guitar. Ironic I'm talking about that because he's in hospital now and not in a real good fucking way, and I've got to go visit him on Friday.
Sorry to hear that. Man.
Funny to talk about that, but it brings that was my first guitar. That was a Carson, which just your generic sort of starter electric guitar, and I rocked with that for about 5 years, and went and bought myself my own guitar finally.
What was the first guitar you bought yourself? Do you remember?
Ibanez RG.
Okay.
Still got it.
Oh, nice. Still got it.
That's it there.
There you go. Non-slaughter sticker. We love that.
Yeah, hey, motherfucker, yeah.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. But I still play this one live.
That's killer that you still. That's killer you still kept it. A lot of the guys that we have on, they always keep their first instruments usually. And you mentioned also, that 15, the age of 15. Now, you actually didn't start making metalhead friends until about that age.
Yeah. Didn't. No, didn't really have much middle connection with people, apart from my cousin in Melbourne, who I was speaking about before, Bossy. He was a metalhead, so it was always good to be. He was always a couple of years older than me, it was always, I sort of looked up to him, and I got access to a bit of Megadeth, Pete sales and shit, like you're saying. Killing is my business. That's where I saw like pictures of Forbidden and shit in his magazines for the first time. And for my mate Jamie, basically, got fucking Jamie. He lives up in Bendigo. We've been mates since 1993, and he had Massacre and Sepultura Rise and Massacre from Beyond on cassette. He even had Be Herodite, the Black Blood. He bought that like when he was 11 years old or some shit. The Be Herodite, the Black Blood on cassette. So he lived close by, and I learned a bit of stuff off him, and he had his mate Blackie. And then, sort of mates with Blackie as well. And they sort of showed me some bits and pieces, and I just went off and started discovering my own shit. So, yeah, that was about 15. Yeah, 92, late 92. That's when Blackie was showing me Pestilence. Don't know if you know Australian band Blood Duster, but their Menstrual Soup demo. Showed me Deicide Legion and shit. So that was late 92 with Blackie, and that was around the same time I got to know Jamie. And that was about it. That was my own core crew of three of us metalheads, and that was about it.
Well, that's 92. And 93, you saw your first death metal concert, right? Which was one of Ed's favorite bands, actually. It was Bolt Thrower and Armored Angel.
Yep. So that was an all ages gig. I went down with Jamie, I was just talking about before. And yeah, we got a train down from Bendigo down to Melbourne, and then we had to get another train. Our parents gave us the day off school to go to that gig, which is cool. It was a Friday gig or some shit, and yeah, that was my first death metal gig. Bolt Thrower played. There was Discarnated, I believe the name was. They were an Adelaide band. They opened up, and a band called Damaged also played. I actually did play on a recording by a band called Funerary Pit with Matt Skitz from Damaged, but he was the first wild drummer I think I saw live. And then Armored Angel, of course. I had the Communion demo. I bought that there, and I've still got the poster from that gig from '93, just like literally about 30 centimetres away from me at the moment. So yeah, I got some exposure, some good stuff live early on. It was good times. Jump stage dive, shake, shook fucking Carl Willett's hand and stage diving and just having the blast.
Was that the Spearhead Assault tour?
Yep.
Okay. And Ed's a huge Bolt Thrower fan too.
Huge.
Did you know then you wanted to be in a band? Like, when did you kind of like say to yourself, like you said, you had seen Queen, you had been to other shows, but this was your first extreme, or you would say death metal show. Like, did you know at that point that you wanted to be in a band?
I knew I wanted to be in a band before then. Probably when I was young, before I had the capabilities of sort of doing that. But I sort of wrote basic. Me and a couple of friends wrote basic songs. I think we were called 15, 11, 11. We lived like within 3 doors of each other. And that was because I was 11 years old. My other mate was 11 and the drummer was 15. And, there was some really basic stuff going on there. And then we done a few covers, Knocking on Heaven's Door. And I actually was, I've got a tape, of riffs. I used to write riffs back when I was like even 12, 13. I look back on one of them, it was like a slower, simpler version of Blasphemy, Demoniac, like, writing those riffs when I was 13 before I even knew what friggin' death metal was. So there was always that with me, and then got to 15, play Metallica covers and shit like that. And then I just went off on my own path and delved into the underground by about the age of 17 at 95. So
was the underground where you were from? Was that like, because I know you, so I had read, I think the first zines you ever had was a Slayer 10 and Petrified 3. Was that common for you to be able to get these magazines back then? Or was that easier for you to get your hands on that stuff?
No. Well, getting those 2 magazines in particular are easier than most magazines I had to get of those ilk. But you're looking at earlier than that, there was like the commercial magazines like Hot Metal and stuff, and Ultra Kill and
Kerrang or whatever.
Yeah. So Hot Metal sort of filled my cup as a young fella. That was the Australian local one. Like back when because glam, that hair metal shit we were talking about, was so popular, you could basically have a magazine, an Australia-wide magazine, and obviously smaller population, harder to sustain in that regard. But it was that hair metal stuff was that popular that they could bounce off that and then put in some thrash and some death and some bit of this and that. So it just sort of filled my cup. But by the time I was sort of 15, 16, those magazines sort of weren't cutting it for me. Seeing those Burzum and Emperor things was sort of pretty cool, and seeing Morbid Angel pictures in some of those glossy magazines was cool. But I happened to it must have been about 94. I happened to walk into our local store that would sell some extreme metal. And they used to get distribution from actually what was probably the biggest distributor of the extreme metal in Australia. So they actually had access to some of the cool shit. And they happened to randomly have a Slayer mag sitting there in Petrified magazine. I just had a quick flick and I bought them straight away. Like that was the shit I was looking for because of the Emperor, because of when Dark Throne, Blazing Northern Sky, and Emperor. The Emperor split with Enslaved, the Emperor side in particular. Hearing some of that sort of stuff, once I could flick through Petrified and see there was an interview with Bard Forst or fucking Griznak and shit, it was like, it was a no-brainer. And then that had addresses of labels, and I started doing a radio show, and yeah, just once I sort of hit that point, I just dug straight in.
In 95, you and J-Ro Raphael, right, aka Hellspawn, who's the drummer, who's also from Victoria, you guys formed a black metal band, Aphasia. Is that your first band you were in?
As far as anything extreme, and exclusively original music, yeah, it was Jero Raphael. His name's Jero. So yeah, I was 85, 95. I just turned 17. Jero was 15, nearly 16 or some shit. He contacted me through a radio station. Yeah, we sort of he was lived an hour and a half or something north, even further remote country. So we were rarities in our sort of areas. So he played drums and I played guitar. So he come down to my joint for one night, had a bit of a jam and hang out, and went to record just on the 4-track, just like that. Was really done sort of on a pretty quickly and primitively, but it was our way to get more something behind it, something under our belts to send out to people and get more involved with the underground,
And that was the Battle of Armageddon demo you're speaking of? So that was 4 tracks, double-sided, right? And I was going to ask you, so I know the beginning of it is the Valley of Wandering Souls, which is like an acoustic piece. Is that you that does that on there?
Yeah.
It goes, and then you have Solitude, which is kind of intro, but everything else is kind of, it's raw black metal. I even, what is it? Is it Lost in the Dreams of Lilith, I believe it is. It kind of has like a Black Sabbath-y beginning, I felt like, a little bit in the beginning of that. Were you guys like, when you guys were doing that, like, so how long did it take you to come up with the material? Because you guys formed in 95. You guys recorded that in 95 too, right? So was there much, did you guys just bang out the tunes right away?
Yeah. Jero sent a tape with a couple of things on acoustic guitar, and then I expanded on that for the intro thing, Valley of Wandering Souls. Then there's just the Battle of Armageddon, then the Solitude. So it's just sort of it was yeah. So I wrote Battle of Armageddon. That was the first song. That was the first like proper song I'd written from start to finish, lyrics and all that sort of shit. I wrote the lyrics to that while I was in a sort of like a detention class because I had too many absences from a certain subject. So they make you go on they used to make you go on to school when you'd had like 5 absences for the semester, and it was on a Sunday, and I just sat there and fucking wrote the lyrics to Battle of Armageddon. So it was a pretty productive detention.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's making the fucking most of detention, eh? But I wrote that, and then Solitude was just an acoustic thing I wrote as well. And but as far as the intro to Solitude, I know what you mean with the Black Sabbath. It was sort of obviously some doom.
Has a Sabbathy feel to it, yeah.
But I reckon it's probably been inspired mostly by My Dying the Bride from As the Flower Withers.
Okay.
First song.
You guys,
I'm fucking hopelessly tired with the first song.
you guys recorded that, like it says, July 6th and 7th and 95. Where did you guys record that at? Did you guys just record that in your jam space or?
My dad's bandmate, the bass player, the other guitarist and shit, he had a 4-track recording set up, and we just done a little bit of ping ponging, the acoustic guitar little things in there, and it was just done without any experience apart from someone knowing how to run it. I ended up going back and mixing it and adding I sort of dabbled in the mixing side of things early on with that. So after the first session of that, went the recording, and we just got it done there and then. But Giroux actually said it needs a bit more to it, because it was basically an intro, then like a 1.5 minute song with no vocals, then a song, and then an intro with another 1.5 minutes of no freaking vocals. So I ended up going back, putting some fucking vocals over it, and it sort of turned it into one full complete song, but then two more inclined to be considered a song than an intro with some music after it. So yeah, it was done for free. It was done after we'd only met each other the day before. It was just our tool to get ourselves more actively involved with that scene, that mysterious scene that we were speaking about earlier. The shit you couldn't get as much access to.
And for those who don't know, the drummer, he played what? Nocturnal Graves, Coffin Lust, Destroyer 666, and we'll get onto all that. But you guys do any live gigs, Aphasia?
No.
So no live gigs, okay. Because that band lasted, 2 years, and then you guys transformed into Destruktor in 97. Now, the original name for Destruktor was going to be, you can tell me if this is correct or not, Destruktor Antichrist was the original name you guys were going to use, then you tossed it?
Well, I wouldn't say we're going to use it. It was mentioned at the time we discussed the band name. So Aphasia, pretty much we've done the demo, and Giroux moved on not too long after that and started his own one-man sort of thing, and started basically done his thing on his own. And then we were having a chat on the phone and talked about getting it up and running again, and Giroux was sort of keen. We said, yeah, but different name and got to be more aggressive and shit. And so we basically sat there and then decided we'll get some more shit happening. And we're talking about band names, and Giroux threw up Destructor Antichrist, and I just went, it's too long. And then basically we just Destructor, So yeah, it was come across pretty quickly, and just dropped the additional word.
And you mentioned Emperor a few times, and you guys actually had Christoph Spindel do the logo, the Polish artist. He did, obviously, Lucifer, Emperor, Blaze of Sorrow, Hatred, a shitload of bands. But how did you guys get a hold of him to do your guys' logo?
Wrote him a letter, and he sent me a logo back. That's it.
Really?
That's it.
Nice.
I mean, I'd like to elaborate more, but sometimes the story is really simple and there's no background. I knew that, so here I go again.
Do you still have the original logo he drew you?
Shit. I wouldn't know if it is, because I think I copied it again, and I don't think so. I can't be sure. He might have sent it as a copy from his, but it was photocopied. It's one of the few things I'm a little more vague on, but I don't believe I have the original drawing. No.
Okay. And what was the first Destructor song ever written?
Battle of Armageddon. The Battle of Armageddon. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the one I wrote in Detention Man. Look.
And you guys did so, and then you guys, May 7th, 1997, you guys go into Nuclear Hell Studios and record the band's first 3 songs, the Holy Trinity, Denied demo. How long did it take you to write that material for that one? Or did you, obviously you might have had some stuff left over from the Aphasia, but how long, after you guys chose the name Destructor, how long was it before you guys hopped in the studio?
Oh shit! I'd have to have a look at the exact dates, but there is a rehearsal tape, I think, from late 96. But I just turned 19, and Joe was still 17, and we didn't have licenses, and you can't get a license till you're 18 minimum anyway. Yeah, I didn't get mine until I was 20. And Giroux didn't have his license, so we done this. I did have some stuff written, and we basically went up to Giro's, and the night before we went to the rehearsal studio, we had another jam, and we sort of finished it off. Like, they weren't fully complete, but we had enough selection of our initial rehearsals just to tie those 3 songs together. Battle of Armageddon had already been written for the demo, so that came across pretty easy. And the other 2 songs had been recorded like in a rehearsal, like around 96. And then we just had to cut a bit of shit and refine it a bit, and then went up and jammed it. So it wasn't extensive jamming, and we were only in the studio for 5 hours, including mix down.
And you played the bass on the demos, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no musos into my stuff, or keen to do original. Well, no one keen to do original death metal that I knew of or hung out with, or anything like that. And that's probably why ended up Giro contacting me when I was doing the radio show, because he heard about that in the radio station I was doing, and he managed to get his signal to pick up this signal, pick up our community radio signal from fucking up where he lived. I mean, that's what it took to even get a musician to play together. There was no one. It was took me quite a few years to find a local drummer.
I was going to ask you that. Your scene, your local area, that time period, 97, we're talking about, like, what was it like as, was there, because I don't know what it was. I had heard you say once that even getting some of the national bands through your area wasn't happening too much back then. Like, what was it like? Was there a lot of local bands? Was were you guys like playing the death, like you said, the death metal thing? Was that in your town? Was that a thing in 97?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. Like in Melbourne, yeah. There was so you can sort of picture our state, Victoria. I can't give you comparative size internationally. But I think our state's fucking probably bigger than the UK, for instance, as it is. Melbourne's the only joint with a population of over 1 million. Bendigo, which is north, is only at that time maybe 100,000. Geelong, where I live now, it's got now 500,000. Those regional places, Geelong had a bit of a scene. That was the next biggest place. Ballarat, the other small. There's 3: Bendigo, fucking Geelong, and Ballarat are the 3 biggest country towns. Geelong had a scene. Ballarat had a scene. Bendigo had nothing. Nothing at all. You could say there was a band called Callus. Early days, they'd done a bit of death metal around 94. They recorded 1 or 2 songs for like some student or TAFE thing. So there is maybe you could mention that. And a mate Watto, there is a video of him jamming with his mate, and they called their band Manson around probably that time. But they didn't actually record songs or do anything. I think they were just jamming and shit, and it just happened to be a video of that. So there was no death metal musos my side of town. There was no guitarist. The other side of my hometown, there was a couple of musos that I didn't know about back then, and no one was into the friggin' black metal and shit anyway. So it was non-existent. There was one gig I remember going to. I think it was 3 payers, me, my mate, and someone else. That was it. And one of the band traveled 4 hours. Death metal bands. It was a non-existent scene.
So obviously finding players is probably not easy. Then you're right. And you were handling the lyrics back in 97, right? You were doing all that, and I had heard you say once that, like, lyric wise, you explained yourself as kind of like unspiritual, skeptic, kind of like when you write lyrics, like you don't. Like Destruktor, every song is not exactly the same, like lyric wise. Everything, there's a variety there, and that's something you do on purpose instead of just the same topic over and over again.
Well, yeah, it would be somewhat on purpose. You can get tired of doing the same shit over and over. There's only so many fucking times you can try and fucking be blasphemous, and how many times you can say fucking bombs and bazookas and tanks and shit, and so many times you can talk about fucking depression and I just don't really care to sing the same shit over and over. Like, it's all going to be linked to each other. There's songs that have some similar themes, like Tyrant's Condemnation from Opprobrium compared to Writhe in Pain from Indomitable. They're both songs based on torture in some way or another, and violence. But one of them's more sort of Spanish Inquisition sort of style. Another one's more fucking like lapidation, like stoning and shit, like happens in a lot of the Islamic countries and shit like that. So there's different angles you can take, and I don't see the point in just attacking one religion. We mix it up a little bit here and there.
It's enough fucked up people to write a lot of songs about this world. There's no shortage of crazy shit to write about.
No, that's right. And I guess we're not without that belief. We're not here to preach a message. We're maybe here to delve into the dark side of things, though.
Yeah. And who did the cover design for your demo?
A fellow called Jason Kinnear. He was just a student who was doing graphic design. Pretty fancy thing for someone to be doing back in 1997. But there, one fellow, John, provided John Cosgrove, I think his name was John Cosgrove. He provided some a sketch, but something we couldn't really go with, so we amended it and then got graphically artists, fucking manipulated by him, and then that's what he come up with. So that's what I had, and that's what we went with.
And so that demo, like, what was the early reaction to that demo? Do you remember? Was it like, did you guys get into any of the magazines or anything for reviews, or were you shipping it out to everybody?
Yeah, so the demo, reviews were all over the place, but plenty of people appreciated the the barbaric, chaotic style, though. A lot of bands around '97. I listened back on a few things from back in that era in the last sort of year or two, and I realised a lot of bands were really venturing onto experiments and fucking female vocals and violins and keyboards and all gothic shit and all this, so many bands were doing that, and I had no interest in it, to be honest. Like, maybe when I was 15, 16, hearing a bit of stuff like Amorphous, say, Tales from a Thousand Lakes, and some of the Anathema stuff, some of the English Doom and In the Woods, but I got pretty bored of that sort of stuff. I like the stuff I was speaking about, but a lot of the bands that just sort of deviated from their death metal roots, and they just all, that's at 95, 97, they all deviated from their death metal roots. You look at them, Paradise Lost, Anathema, all those bands I'm mentioning there, My Dying Bride, people can argue bands like Moonspell and bands like from some of the Swedish bands also. In Australia, it was the same sort of thing. They were going off on a more melodic path and a nicer, softer thing, and that wasn't what attracted me to this stuff in the first place. So I sort of just moved darker and heavier and more extreme, basically.
And when was the actual first Destruktor show? The first official Destruktor show, I guess you'd say.
2001. So, Chris Volcano? Or you heard of Chris Volcano?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I used to know, I still know him, but I used to knock with Chris a little bit, and he heard our rehearsal that we'd done with Giro, and then Giro left the band, and we had no one, and he heard the tracks that we'd had down, and basically said, you need to get these recorded. So offered his services. So that was the same time around Abominator doing Damnation's Prophecy and getting down to that path, and Gospel of the Horns.
And Chris Volcano, he played on the, if I'm correct, he played on the Destroyer 666 Songs for the Devil demo, right?
Yep. So, him and Matt Skitz were the two earliest drummers of Destroyer. He done some work for Destroyer. Yep, early stuff. Also Abominator, Cemetery Urn. He sings for Cemetery Urn now. And done a few other bits and pieces as well. But he offered to play, and simply me and Regan travelled down to Melbourne from Bendigo. Had some rehearsals, and I went in the same studio that Abominator and that we're using, and laid down 5 tracks. Those 4 tracks plus one we'd actually written over the rehearsals we've been having with Chris, and that turned into our 7-inch recording. And then Abominator were scheduled to play a gig with Dawn of Azazel from New Zealand and Nara as well, and they needed an opener, and Chris decided to give us a buzz and say, do you want to open the gig? So he was happy to do double duties, and was like, well, fucking oath, why not? And that was our first gig.
And Chris only played one show with you guys, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Giroux returned to the fold not long after that gig. And Chris was always as a session drummer. Like, we were always going to hope that we could find someone who was going to work local and closer. But Chris just wanted to make sure that we got that thing recorded. And forever grateful to the man.
And you mentioned Reagan. He joined, 2000? And you actually, so you met him over, was it a conversation about a metal shirt he was wearing at a show? Is that how you actually became friends with him?
A touch earlier, probably like not long after we'd done the demo sort of thing. So sort of 97, 98. When I was going to town and walk through town up to no good, doing whatever the fuck I was at the time, seeing someone with a metal shirt, like a good metal shirt, like an extreme death black metal shirt, was a rarity. And I was walking through the fucking mall. We call it the mall from Bendigo, but others know it as the mall. And he was wearing this freaking shirt. I went, fuck, that's like a death metal shirt. Who the fuck's that? You know, when you can't read those logos, especially when you're a bit younger and not as haven't seen as many of those logos. But I went up to him and going, man, who's that? What's that shirt, man? He's like, Danger Corpse. I'm like, oh, fucking sick. I got the demo. Like, I had it taped and shit, but I didn't have the cover or anything. It was something I got through the tape trading days or some shit. Had no idea, but then it was like Danger Corpse. Like, hey, we're on to a winner there. Next shirt I think I saw him wearing was Emperor in the Night Side Eclipse, and we got chatting and asked him if he played an instrument. He played bass. So basically, I finally found a extreme metalhead who played an instrument.
There you go.
Locally.
And you mentioned Angel Corpse, and we'll get to that. Yeah, you actually played with Gene from Angel Corpse with Perdition Temple in Cleveland a couple of years ago, which we'll talk about that. But 2002, Destruktor does a 7-inch with Nunslaughter, which we had actually Dawn of the Dead on here like 6 months ago, right, Ed? Awesome. Dawn's great. How did you guys get hooked up with Nunslaughter? Because you guys did the Satanic Salvation / Live Desecration 7-inch.
Yeah. So Dawn. Somehow I got the I think it might have been Kaz from Crucifier.
Mm-hmm. Kaz Grant.
I was in contact with them. I was in contact with him, and at some stage got a bit of Hearst shit and some Crucifier stuff, and it had the split 7-inch with Nunslaughter, and fucking killer 7-inch, by the way. If you haven't checked out the Crucifier track's unreal. It's one of Nunslaughter's best tracks as far as I'm concerned. And maybe that's because it's one of the first things I heard. But yeah, man, it's a fucking killer 7-inch. So I was just writing mail and stuff. So I just wrote a letter to Don, because I'd also got the Guts of Christ 7-inch from an Italian distro, Warlord Records. I think they changed their name to it that time from that time. And contacted him because, into the band, see if we can get some more stuff off him. And, he sent some shit and I paid him he sent it in advance. He just sent me this, like, big box. I'm like, oh, unreal, man. Like, and opened up, Nunslaughter, bloody long sleeve and 7-inch tapes. And so I sort of started distributing that, because by that time there was a group of maybe 5, 6, 7 of us metalheads at that time. So I was sort of getting some of their stuff and I was selling. I was buying a bit of their shit and just asked if they wanted to do a split, because I know that they'd been doing a few split 7-inches over that period. There'd been a couple that had popped up, 3 or 4, and I thought, oh, might as well ask. And Don simply just sent back 2 songs. As soon as it was agreed on, he just sent back 2 songs and the artwork for it and said, go for your life. Just like, there you go. Like, it was a really easy, simple process. But I'd been sort of getting a couple of packages and supporting the band as well. So, we just put up a bit of relationship through the old school way of mail that you write with your hand with a pen on paper.
Lost concept. Were you big into the tape trading?
Not as big as some, but bigger than most, I guess. I mean, half of my tapes are, original demos, and not all demos, but, full lengths and that sort of shit. But the other half are what I got traded and sent and all that sort of shit. Writing, handwriting down the list of music I had back in the day before I had 1,000 bloody items. That sort of, at least it was somewhat writable, but then you'd write it out once, then you'd go and photocopy it, and you'd send a list to a few of your mates, and then they'd send you the shit that, you know, you didn't think you'd ever hear or have heard of. And yeah, so half my stuff is tape trading stuff. And then, of course, with the band, Aphasia, Destruktor, you did ask about interviews and that I got sidetracked, and there was no doubt I was going to get sidetracked at some point, and probably will again. But even with the demo tape, you know, we spread, you know, 300 or 400 copies of the demo, and then another 100 of the promo back then. So I was getting stuff back from people there. I was using that for tape trading. So it was cool. It was trading for underground shit that I never thought I'd hear, and trading for underground current shit that was released like proper tapes and CDs and all that sort of shit, man. It was a balance of both.
It was great. It was definitely a great time. And you guys did, because on that 7-inch with Nunslaughter, you guys did the Brutal Desecration. You guys did a Slaughter cover. You guys did Death Dealer. You guys also did a tape. So 2002, the Impaler, Mad Max, right? The tribute tape. You guys were involved with that too?
Yeah. So you're aware who Mad Max is?
Yeah, he was with that band, Worship, right?
Worship. Yeah, that was the band he's most known for. He did do a couple of other crazy, obscure things, but Worship was the last tape before Doomsday. Yeah, he had his he released a few tapes and shit. I've still got a few of the tapes that he sent me. Probably all the tapes he sent me, but yeah, he died.
Yeah, because you guys did that. Was what Beer Vomit was on that. Decayed, Beast Style Mockery was another band that is a killer band. But you guys wasn't the tracks mixed up for you, like with Derketa? Didn't something happen with the Destructor track?
Yeah. They were literally swapped. So the track listing was us and Derketa swapped around.
Yeah. So you did that tape, and then 2002. You guys released the Brutal Desecration 7-inch, with 4 songs, including the Holy Trinity, Deny track from the first demo. And the EP was recorded. Was that the same session for the Nunslaughter sessions too, when you guys recorded those tracks?
No, the Nunslaughter tracks were just 2 tracks taken from a live gig. Duro played 3 gigs for us all up. And those two of those tracks were from the Melbourne gig. I think it was from the Melbourne gig. We played with Gospel of the Horns for that one. And then this 7-inch, that's for the 4 tracks that Chris Volcano.
And that was Chris Volcano on that one.
4. And then we actually recorded a 5th track as well, Unholy Victory Massacre, which appeared on a compilation. So there's 5. We did record 5 songs.
Okay. And who did the cover art for that 7-inch for Brutal Desecration?
Rob. His name's Rob. He's from Canada. He's a tattoo artist. He did have a tattoo studio, I think, called Dance Macabre Tattoo Studio. And he did play in a band called Necromantic Curse. But I had recent conversation with him after 20 years. Found him on Facebook to let him know that the Brutal Desecration is actually getting re-released. So I'm going to make sure I get him a copy sent to him. You know what I mean? So,
and this kind of goes to now. You go to, like, you talk about the re-release. So you guys get involved with. Me and you were talking off the show, Glenn, about this. You guys get involved with Hell's Headbangers because you guys do like Nuclear Storm EP on Hell's in 2004. How did you actually get hooked up with them? Is that from Nunslaughter?
That's the main reason. I believe that they might have may be wrong, but I believe that they might have signed Anatomy. They were going to do a release for Atomizer, but I'd known that they'd done the Hell's the Nunslaughter stuff, and that was the main thing. But I'd known that they might be open to it if they'd worked with one Australian band, they might work with us. And I knew we had a solid product to at least send to them. So you're sorry, I just got distracted there. You're talking Nuclear Storm or Brutal Desecration?
Well, Brutal Desecration we were talking about prior, but Nuclear Storm was your first EP with Hell's Headbangers, right?
Yeah,
that you guys did.
Feel free to cut that if you want. Yeah. Nuclear Storm was done. So we approached Hell's Headbangers with it because of the work with Nunslaughter. and we just sent it to them, and basically Chase just got back to us and said, "Yeah, we're keen to do it." And fucking, I think said, "I'll give us $150 US, and you can have it." Ended up like making 3,000 bloody CDs and about 1,000 records. Bloody, it was a real the formative years of Hell's Headbangers. In the first 1 or 2 years, I think this was the first EP, first like mini LP they might have done. But yeah, they managed to move quite a few copies of that, and part of the initial success for our Hell's Headbangers, and like to think we help get them moving along.
Well, you mentioned Hell's. So with that record, the EP, the Nuclear Storm EP, you guys dealt with a lot of delays on that, right? Because you guys, first of all, you recorded it at Cutting Edge Studios in 2002 in Melbourne, and you guys changed engineers during the recording.
Oh, it was a bit of a pain in the ass. And by the way, Hell's Headbangers certainly helped us get going as well. Don't you worry. With the recording, yeah, we went to a place in Melbourne, and we recorded the tracks and took it home, and things had to be adjusted. There was things that weren't quite right. So I went back into the studio, and the same engineer was there. He was ready to go. So that was Richie Pope. And we went back and we adjusted that stuff, and then I went home with it again, and I still didn't like something else, and I don't think he could be fucked with it anymore. And so when I booked in to the studio, I turned up, and there was some dance pop music, I think more producer, more into that sort of stuff. I really only want to cut out a couple of minor details, but it didn't get done quite how I was hoping. But that's just how it went. But it was minor stuff, but it was me just trying to get those last 2 or 3 details fixed, and then I had to take the final result from that third mini session.
What did you guys have, like buzzing? You had like guitar buzzing in the background that you didn't like or something on some of the tapes when you brought them home?
Well, initially I had to cut back on some of the lead. It was lead all over the place. We were never going to be able to, play it live. There was no chance we were going to be able to do anything like that. And I personally don't care to have a lot of lead guitar, and I never have. Where's the fucking lead bass? Where's the lead drums? Like, why does it have to be a freaking show for a guitar player? I do I love Ace Frehley, I love Kirk Hammett, I fucking respect those sort of guitar players.
Time and place for everything, though, right?
But yeah. Totally. And songs just don't have to have a guitar solo. Like, Jesus. Just like an instrumental, they don't have to have vocals. You can have a song that doesn't have to have vocals. Same shit. But some bands feel that you need to have a lead every single song.
Yeah.
And less is more. But we had to remove those leads, half of those leads, and there was a buzz. There was a second. There was a hum sort of sound. One of those sort of things that was just a bit too obnoxious that I didn't like, and maybe trying to adjust the sound just a little bit, because I still believe the guitar sound just a little bit flat. I like a much sharper cutting sound, more like slicing you with a knife than smashing you with a sledgehammer.
There you go. And you guys, so that's when Jared enters during this time period, right? On drums after this.
Yeah, well, Dro left, and then we were drummerless for about a year and a half. Back to the old one-man band at one point, sort of Regan sort of just sat on the side until I could get something happening. So we sort of practically a one-man band, and then went to because Regan had joined Nocturnal Graves around that time, and was just sitting on the sidelines of Destruktor basically. And but Nocturnal Graves had their first gig, and they happened that they were having it in Bendigo. Duro was still living near Bendigo, and Regan was from Bendigo. So they organised a gig, and they played with a band called Flesh Confetti, and some other band opened up. And Flesh Confetti jumped on stage, and there was this young fella, can't remember what hair he had at the time, probably 7 spikes and probably 3/4 length shorts and baggy shorts, and just watched him just play drums. I've never seen anyone in Bendigo like it, basically. All these years, but having no local drummer, like I'm talking from 97 till about 2003, 95 to 2003, probably, closer to 10 years than 5 without a local drummer. We never sort of come across one. So Joe was a bit younger than me, but straight after the gig, when I was watching him, I was like, flicking my hands at him, like playing like air drums to him, like going, yeah. And I went straight up to him after the gig and just said, hey, you can fucking play. You reckon you could play our shit? And I got his number. I literally rang him the next morning, didn't fuck around, went over to his house, showed him Arm of the Rift to Inspiration Suicide, right? So it's straightforward, right? It's like, and the drums are just bop, 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 bop. Like there's nothing in between. It's really straightforward. But there was, even that style was uncomprehendable for most people. Just like maybe a heavy metal drummer I might have met once or twice who wanted to have a jam. But he picked that straight away. And I think at the time he's like, what the fuck? Like, this is real simple. Like, he knew Destruktor, sort of, his mates knew of it, but we were nothing connected. They were younger kids, the younger scene, and I was, older, doing my own thing with my own crew. But before long, he found the room to be putting his freaking cool moves in with Mechademon. Like, that was the second song we jammed, and just bang, we just started jamming every week, and that was it, man. He was in, man. We just went for it, no fucking around.
There you go. And we're actually going to play. So we're going to play from the Nuclear Storm EP. We're going to play "Fight Like the Devil" that came out in Hell's Headbangers, and we're going to be back with Glenn here right after this track. This is Destruktor with "Fight Like the Devil" from Nuclear Storm EP on Hell's Headbangers. We'll be back on the Tampa Morgue right after this track with Glenn. That was Destruktor, Fight Like the Devil, off the Nuclear Storm EP. So I had read early on, Destruktor only played, 4 shows in the first 8 years? Is that about right, calculation-wise?
Yeah, Jerome done 3, and Volcano done 1, and Jared first one was around 2004. So yeah, if you count 95, but I'm happy to count 97 as the start in that regard. Sort of at least about 7 years before we could play our first gig. Yeah.
You guys are doing shows with what? Gospel of Horns. You guys played with Dismember, if I'm correct. Nocturnal Graves, Denouncement Pyre. What are some of the other bands that you guys were jamming with at those days, doing gigs with? When you guys actually start playing shows more often?
Yeah. So a little bit more often. Okay, yeah. So we definitely played a few with Gospel of Horns, Shackles, a Sydney band. Used to play a few with them. Definitely, played with Nocturnal Graves a couple of times. We played with but Portal was sort of a bit earlier than them. We hadn't played with him. I don't think we've played with him since Jared's been in the band. Hasn't been a heap of bands we've played with often. Like we've just we've played with Cemetery Urn a couple of times. We played with Thrall a couple of times. Belligerent Intent. We played with them. Funnily enough, you could probably say Inquisition because we played with them in the Sydney Festival, and we played with them at the festival in America too. Hell's Head Bash. But there's very few bands. Desecrator, a thrash band, we used to play a couple of gigs with them here and there. I don't know if you heard of Desecrator from Melbourne, but they're more of a Metallica thrash sort of classic speed heavy metal sort of style. But yeah, in all honesty, there's not bands we've played a plethora of gigs with, sort of thing,
And you yourself, you also 2006, you did vocals on the Funerary Pit, Winds of Hell EP. How did that come to happen?
Yeah, well, Ryan, Gospel of Horns, guitarist at the time, he had his side project going, Funerary Pit. He had Matt Skitz playing. Now that Matt Skitz is that fellow I told you I saw that band at that Bolt Thrower gig back in '93. Mm-hmm. Played with a band called Damaged. I'm not sure if you're aware of Damaged. But Matt Skitz was playing drums, which is pretty cool. Kind of sing on a release with those two fellas, which was pretty cool. But Ryan rang me and just was decided between a couple of people and basically said, I think your timing is going to be a bit better for it. And he sent me a rehearsal, which I couldn't really make that much sense of anyway. And I literally just travelled down to Melbourne from Bendigo, turned up to the studio, went into the studio. Ryan just went through line by line and said, "Can you sing it like this?" And just went, and then I just went, repeated what he did, and then if it was good, he goes, "Yep, next line." I was literally like, you have drum machines. I was basically a vocal machine. Just got programmed,
And then 2007, you put out the split with B-Style Mockery from Sweden on Hell's Headbangers, Metal of Death. It was supposed to be released in 2006, but I guess they had problems with the covers, got misprinted or something like that. So it didn't come out till 2007?
Yeah, I don't recall much of a delay. I think the songs might have been recorded, but it might have been a bit of a delay in the artwork, but don't remember that specific detail as far as the delay. But you did mention the Nuclear Storm delay, which I didn't really elaborate on. I won't get into that one too much. But it was going to be through Agonia Records. Nuclear Storm was going to be through Agonia Records or Soul Cellar. But that was Jero's dealings, and Jero left the band before the album was finished. And that's when I went off and contacted contacted Hell's Headbangers, by the way.
So it probably worked out for you, actually.
Yeah, well, it kind of, it certainly did. Although let's say Agonia seemed to be doing some good things, of course. But and Soul Cellar would have done a good job. But yeah, the Hell's Headbangers it worked out real well for me to go off on that tangent and just approach them, because they were the only label I approached. But delays were studio delays, and then eventually we got the artwork done. I actually ended up doing the layout with Jero after he'd left the band. The misprints, I think we might be talking now that we've elaborated on that a little bit, which is good. The delays were more with the Nuclear Storm ended up with presses that weren't meant to be pressed, so there ended up being like 5 different pressings of it. So they done like the picture disc, and they done the black vinyl, and they done the Die Hard one, which come with a pin and it was purple. But then they ended up putting up there was some grey ones that come through for some reason, and then there was clear ones, and then there was extra black ones. So there ended up being like 6 fucking versions of that, which is You know, I mean, I guess sort of cool, but at the same time, I'm not big on having like 6 different versions of stuff. But for a first release and how it all eventuated, it's pretty cool. Have all those different versions as our first 12-inch release sitting in the collection.
And with Hells, I do want to touch on them for a second because I was talking to you earlier before. I think we did this before. I don't think we recorded it yet, but Hells, at least for me, when I pick up items, they're labeled at the product's killer. It looks great, and I don't know if it's still the same with you, but I know there was a period where you weren't even you were so happy with Hells, you weren't really shopping around to any different labels. You were pretty much dealing with Hells. That was pretty much your agenda.
Yeah, I've never flirted with anyone else at all. Label wise, like we got pretty lucky, if you want to use the word lucky, but that's a loosely used term, an overused term. Got the Brutal Desecration. When we're looking at doing Brutal Desecration 7-inch, we'll talk to Somber Records and a couple other places, but an Australian record label, Decius, offered us twice as many copies for ourselves and print twice as many copies. So that's sort of really made Brutal Desecration get out there in higher numbers than what other 7-inches were doing. And we also had 4 songs, so it was like a full EP, so that got us off to a good start. And I'm presuming House Headbangers were aware of that then, which probably didn't cause any harm when we approached our Nuclear Storm and got that release there. But Hell's Headbangers they don't pressure us. I'm not here to work at other people's pace. I try and move along when there's times to move along, and when that happens, I tend to move along. But I enjoy sitting in the shed jamming with the fellas and not pushing everything to be out next week and next year because someone wants to hear some more Destruktor or some shit. I want to make sure these songs are kicking your ass.
Well, we're actually going to talk about that because you mentioned that, and that goes to your first full length. Before we talk about Nailed, which is 2009, 2007, Reagan leaves the band, right, and Brad joins on bass. Brad, Veil of Anguish. So he enters the band. Why did Reagan? You don't have to. You can say what you want and say what you don't want. Why did Reagan wind up leaving the band?
Well, main reason was we moved to Geelong. So Geelong's about 2 hours from Bendigo. So Reagan had Nocturnal Graves to come to itchy scratch, I guess, as you say. And he had a child. He had a newborn around that time. So between having to travel for Nocturnal Graves and having a child and then trying to have to come down to Geelong, because when we left Bendigo, Jared and I moved together. So I come down with my now wife. We got up and left, but Regan stayed in Bendigo, done his thing, and just wasn't going to suit him anymore. Happy doing his Nocturnal Graves and doing his what he had to do up in Bendigo with those responsibilities. And so we moved to Geelong, and funnily enough, the first person I called to look at a bass player in Geelong was a fellow I'd known for years. His name's Chris McEwen. He plays with us now, right? So back when I was 19, I moved. I come down to visit Geelong to visit a mate, and I went to this gig. Veil of Anguish were playing it. I was mates with the singer and bass player at the time, and Chris was there. He was a couple of years younger than me, and he bought the Destruktor demo tape off me back in '97. So of course I rang him, but he was playing in about 3 or 4 bands at the time and didn't have the time to commit. And
didn't he play a Nemeseum too?
No, Nemesium. He played. He actually played with Veil of Anguish as well. Played with Dominion, Befallen, Dawn of Retribution. He had a few bands over the sort of 20 years of playing in his live band. Probably 25 now. But I knew another fella, Brad. I actually thought he was a bass player, and I knew he was a metalhead and played in Veil of Anguish. And I just rang him up and said, "Hey man, you want to have a crack playing bass?" And he lent his brother's bass because he wasn't a bass player; he was a guitarist. And he come over and learnt Fight Like the Devil or something like that, and then Mecha Demon and picked it all up, and away we went.
And that's Brad Hollis. Is that how you say his last name?
That's right.
You guys, so he hooks up in the band, and so now we're going to go to Nailed, because you mentioned something, and I had noticed you had said this in the past too, which I thought was pretty cool. And you could see this with the 3 Destruktor full lengths, because like I said, there's no filler. They're killer records. So you were never in a hurry to do a full length, right? So like in the past, you didn't just want to do a full length to do it. You wanted to have a solid foundation. That was an important thing to you.
Yeah, I could possibly bore people to tears going into that in detail. But firstly, with the issues having no members, in the band, or being a one-man band and then being a two-man, and then not having licenses, being like 2 hours or an hour and a half up the road, and being 17 and that sort of shit, made it hard to really make any progress in the position I was in anyway. So sort of once I got the demo done, and I saw how some bands have done things, and I liked Final was a young fella and had a few records, and I thought 7-inch sounds like a good step up from a demo. I wasn't like, we need to do a CD, we need to do this or that. Like I was, it wasn't like we were in the rehearsal studio every week really refining our sound and playing live gigs over a 2-year period to really get that to that point in some regard. I mean, so we just jammed, and then got the demo done after obviously the gap between Aphasia and Destruktor. And I wrote the songs for Brutal Desecration, and we had them pretty much sort of mostly down, but Roy left and never really got to rehearse those songs with him. We eventually did a couple of rehearsals, but he'd sort of gone on to Destroyer 666 by that time, because he gave the demo to Keith back in 97, and then Jerome moved down not long after that demo and joined Destroyer 666. These songs that I had sitting there, Brutal Desecration, I wrote in that period. I had no one to play them. It was pretty frustrating having these 4 or 5 songs written. It took that long to get them written that I sort of had the mentality from that point that I'm never going to get 6 or 7 or 8 songs ahead of the game here. I'm always going to just be focusing on 2 or 3 songs at a time. And now, and when a lineup gets settled and solid and we can jam those 3 or 4 songs and get them down real fucking good, then we can record them. But when you have more time and more stability for how I would operate, we could work on those 3 songs, refine them, and then start working on the 2 or 3 songs, So I will never write 8 songs in advance and start jamming them at once. And that's still how it's done with Destructible now. We'll have 2 or 3 songs we really want to get right before we start writing another 3 or 4 songs. But now we're at the point where they sort of overlap, as that 3rd or 4th song is really getting to its final point. We're working on another couple. Back in the early days, I just couldn't record them. They just sat there doing freaking nothing, and it pissed me off. So, yeah, I think that sort of affected me, shall we say, if you want to use that word, that I'm not going to waste my time writing 10 songs just going to sit there. I'll just sit there and probably think about them for the next 2 years and keep on changing them, adjust them, because they're not good enough anyway. So, yeah, I'll still continue to focus on 3 or 4 good songs. I don't really write songs. We don't really write songs that get from start to finish that we scrap, because we get rid of them before that, we know that they're not good enough.
You're not looking for filler, you're looking for quality.
Yeah. I'd like to think we do that. And people say that, but not everyone would agree, would they? Because not everyone agrees on everything, obviously.
Well, you guys recorded as a 2-piece too, and that's what you had to do to get what you wanted from that record. That first record is to keep it like that.
Which record?
Nailed.
Yeah. Okay. So with Nailed, yeah, Regan had left, and Jared and I were living together. So it was Beck, my wife, and Jared living. We were all living together. So we were rehearsing just in the second living room, basically. Whenever we wanted, we had the songs that we'd had him. Mecha Demon, for instance, was written up in Bendigo. Inspiration Suicide was written up in Bendigo. Then we had other riffs that were starting to develop. So we come down to Geelong once Regan left. We simply, and clearly part of the history of the band, Jared and I just basically went, the only way to get this album done was a 2-piece, and we just locked it in. Once Regan left, we said, that's it. You know, I knew I could play bass. Not as good as Chris plays bass, but overall, you know, I can sort of I can hold some reasonable ground on bass, so I had no issue doing it. And yeah, Jared and I just simply nailed the bull by the horns at that point, because we knew we were at the point where we needed to do an album. Like, it was definitely me and him were solid. You know, we'd been playing together for 4 years. We knew we could bounce off each other. We could, you know, really progress the tracks, get them right. And yeah, we weren't going to wait around for someone to learn the songs and take another. You know, getting a bass player in and then teaching them is going to delay us by another 2 or 3 months to get to the point where we'd all be happy. So yeah, we just went for it as a 2-piece, and Brad joined before we recorded, but he knew from the start that we were ready to go and record this, and we done it as a 2-piece.
You guys recorded with Sam Johnson, who had worked with Funerary Pit and Cemetery Urn, and you guys also used Mark Riddick. Was that the first time you guys used him, right, for your album cover?
Yeah, first time we used him, yeah, but we didn't use him for the split with Bestial Mockery. That was just provided, you know what I mean? Like, so his art had been used with us before. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the cover to the split with Bestial Mockery, but that was basically my first introduction to Mark Riddick. And so when it come to doing the album, we went, well, let's get in. You know, I think Hell's Headbanger suggested Mark, and I went, yeah, fucking oath, why not? And then we actually worked together on it, you know, instead of him providing an album that suited the release.
I was going to ask you, what do? Send him some music or send him some lyrics and say, hey, this is kind of the gist we're going for? Or
yeah, I can't remember specifically with Niall what Niall was thinking, but definitely with the cover to Nailed, it was based on the song Nailed, so I could, you know, give him a directive on sort of what imagery might suit something like that. So just gave him a directive, and then he just started drawing the goats and the beasts and the cross and the skulls, and away it went.
And again, like, yeah, because what you guys, like, back to the lyrics, I guess you would say, there's no particular, you guys don't, like, just go through a concept. They're not concept things, but just basically what, evil, dark, and straightforward lyrics, right, is kind of your deal when you're writing?
Overall, over the history of the band, that's been a majority of the lyrics, yeah. But the new album, a little bit more direction, you know, a little bit more. Destructor's not a concept band, but there is a little bit more concept to the lyrics, the theme of the album this time around. But generally, no, that's not the case.
And then you guys, after that, you guys released the Prophecy of Nihilism split, and that was what, Hell's Headbangers Again. You guys recorded that at Basement Sound Studios. 2015, the band's second record comes out. I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Let me know, because I have always Opprobrium. That came out on Hell's Headbangers, 7 tracks, and that was the first record with Brad on bass.
Yeah, well, he played on the split with he played on the split with Thronium, but as far as an album, but as far as an album, yeah, Brad played. That was his like first full length EP sort of thing, yeah. Or it wasn't full length, obviously, but yeah, he did record the demo version of Besiege, if you want to look at it like that as well.
And you guys again use Mark Riddick, and also with that album, was your idea like you wanted to make it a little bit shorter than the Nailed record?
Yeah. Well observed as such. Nailed, you know, being a culmination of 10 or so years of you know, slow periods and busy periods, a few gigs, 7-inch splits, that sort of stuff. We sort of knew that we needed to provide something of some, you know, something with a bit more to it, I guess. I think after all that time and the songs with the time that we'd had to craft something, I think coming up with a shorter album might not have been the best move for the band. I think we had to really present something that was full's not the word, but something substantial as far as a full length's concerned.
You were a little bit more pleased. I think I had read you say once that you were more pleased with the mastering on this record, right?
Opprobrium, yeah. So
Nailed was like the volume you weren't happy with, the volume levels maybe?
Yeah, don't have an issue with the sound of Nailed. I don't look back on that and sort of have any real concerns with that. But it's quieter. The CD is quieter than another CD generally if you put them next to each other. But it's getting re-released next year.
Hell's Headbangers?
Yeah.
There you go.
Nathan. So it's remastered and it'll be full volume. So it's if you enjoy the album enough, then it might be a good excuse to upgrade your copy.
There you go. A little salesmanship there. And you guys, did you feel like with that second record that you guys started to show more of the band's dynamics than the first record, than the Nailed record?
Yep, I think so. Don't know really how to put it, but maybe that was having such a solid period, jamming as a three-piece band. In the shed or at Brad's house or in the room in the spare room at home at the old house, being able to jam every week and for a long period of time, probably enabled us to sort of tune in a little bit together. But I'd also more experienced in writing stuff, and I guess just a little more critical of what was going to be included and what wasn't. So maybe that's why it's a little shorter too. Just trying to condense it a bit and make it a little more dynamic, a little more interesting. Nailed has its place. It's maybe more one-dimensional. It's very consistent and less ebbs and flows as such. Our program did add a bit of that, just a bit of craft, I guess, a bit of songcraft, shall we say.
And Brad actually contributed some. So was this the first record that you didn't handle all the lyrics? I think Brad wrote a few of the songs on this record, right, lyric-wise?
Yeah, so Drew wrote some lyrics to Drew wrote a lot of the lyrics to Nuclear Storm. And Regan wrote the lyrics to Hail the Black Goat. Okay. And then Brad did contribute the lyrics. He mostly wrote Eradication, but Blood Poison lyrics were his crowning moment, shall we say? Yeah. That's basically, he was in hospital on death's bed with septicemia and shit like that. And I think on his hospital bed he wrote those lyrics.
And I had also read in an interview once that you had said, which I thought was kind of interesting, you said that Destruktor guitars are not about mastery. It's more about catchy, relentless, and in your face. Do you still feel the same way now as you did during that time period?
Yeah. Yep. I haven't gone down and gone and started tutorials on how to do this or that, and I haven't gone and started listening to lots of new influences or anything like that. It's all about the riff, man. I mean, for me, Metallica, it was all about Metallica when I was 13, 14. I know more Metallica on guitar than any other band, And what did Metallica have? Kick-ass fucking riffs.
Especially those early records that,
fucking smashing away battery and fucking Master of Puppets and shit, they kick-ass riffs. And for me,
riffs are more important to you than lyrics, right?
Yeah. So as I get older, the lyrics have a different meaning and maybe are a little more important. They've always been important. But if the music's shit, who gives a fuck, You need good music. And then if you've got some good vocals to put to it, even better. And then if the lyrics have some appeal, well, you've nailed it, haven't you?
You got the recipe for something good. And you guys also, first time I believe you guys went any further than New Zealand was 2015. You guys, so first of all, you guys did, for that record, you guys did a double release show, right? With Abominator. And then you guys did Hell's Head Bash in Cleveland, which was your first show outside of New Zealand, right?
Yeah. Yep. Hell's Head Bash was about the same time a program was released. So it only just spread a little at that point, but it had gotten out there. But that's it. We've done the major cities of Australia a few times, and we've done New Zealand a couple of times, and we got over to America for that hit and run 3-day fest.
How was that? Because you guys played. I know some of you guys played with Satanic War Master that year, Profanatica, Deceased, Embalmer, Evil Army, Archgoat. And there's more. I think there was like 3 days, a 3-day event. But how was that for you guys? What was your first of all? What was your thoughts on the States coming like when you first got over there? Was that your first time in the U.S.?
Yeah. First time any further than New Zealand as well in any regard.
You could be honest. Were you impressed or not that impressed with this?
Right.
There's no filter here, man. We say what you want. It's all good.
What do we talk about and what don't we talk about? Hey, America. No, fond memories and plenty of time for the place. Shit, hey. You drive on the wrong side of the road. Hey, you just I don't really didn't have to worry about converting miles to kilometres and using a decimal system much, so that wasn't such an issue. But the festival, we'll just talk about the festival, man. We rocked up the night before the 3-day fest. We went and partied on with the I think it's Tomb Sealers, the Tomb Sealer, Tombstalker fellas. Nate, shout out to Nate if he happens to be listening. But we within a couple of hours of getting to Cleveland, we'd been invited over to another motel, and there was some fellas there. They introduced us to a Cleveland steamer, which I think there might be different interpretations of what that is. It's something to do with fucking smoke, as far as I'm concerned. Surprised I didn't stink the joint. Surprised I didn't get kicked out of the joint with the marijuana, but you put the old hot water on and get the room as steamy as it absorbs. So that was the first probably introduction to America was that, and then we went to the gig the next day, and then the next day we played. So it was a 3-day fest. We played on a Saturday night. We played straight before Satanic War Master, then Profanatica. So pretty happy with our positioning on the lineup. You know, I mean, we only went over there for 5 days, so to travel there all that time and be there for the core of the fest, because I think Satanic War Master was making people quite excited that they were coming. So to play straight before them was a pretty good spot for us. But yeah, we played that gig and that was great. Hung out with Lou from Manticore, if you know Lou and Adam. He played the drums with Archgoat for the festival and stuff, and then the next day he had Archgoat and that shit. But I
think Black Witchery played that, didn't they?
Black Witchery played that. Yeah, there was there was Abysmal Lord, Nog played Blizz, Tradition Temple, like you said, Archgoat, Inquisition, Midnight. And it was like 3 days of like 15 bands each day. So yeah, it was pretty full on. It was grousey. Agora Theatre was a cool place to play. And did find out later that Kiss had played the Agora. So I did share this. I have played on the same stage that Kiss played on eventually.
There you go.
So the little things in life, hey. But I've trod where Ace Frehley has trodden before. So that was grouse. But on top of that, like we were a hit and run, right? Like it was an exclusive gig. Part of the whole sort of deal was one gig only. But after those 3 days, we got to go to the last day. But we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum up in Cleveland.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. We were talking about that in the last show when Ozzy was just got inducted into that.
Yeah. He finally fucking decided to do it before he dies. Unlike
because usually they wait till you're dead to put you in there. It's really fucked up.
Yeah. Touch wood, he's got a little while to go, but obviously he's towards the end. So we got to go to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum. That's cool, to check that out. But sort of something sort of more on the side with this. We talked about Nunslaughter earlier on. Now, when I went to the gig, I was hoping I'd see Jim or Don. And Don wasn't there, but I saw this bloke drive into the car lot with his bloody Pittsburgh Steelers number plate. Had a bit of a second look, and because I knew he batted for the Steelers, and I'm like, hey, Jim hadn't seen you in 10, 15 years, but took him a bit to realise it was me, but we worked that out, and then we had a good old chat, and I told him that I wanted to go to Cedar Point. So I believe you'd be familiar with there, up in Sandusky, up near Lake Erie. Fortunately, man, like Cedar Point, it's a thing for me, man. Like years before I went to America, on the internet, when it used to cost you money if you went over your downloads and all this shit. And I just sat there because I got back from the theme parks up in Queensland, like roller coasters, going upside down and getting thrown around. It's good fun. And I went back and I found this Cedar Point, and I looked at all the roller coaster videos, man. And I got this massive fucking bill from the internet provider, and I argued it and didn't, pleaded innocence, and they ended up refunding me, fortunately. But of all the places, of all the theme parks I wanted to go to, Cedar Point was the one. And so I told Jim this, and fortunately, happened to be playing only 1 hour away from the area. And Jim said, "Leave it with me, man. Leave it with me." And next day he comes back to me, the third day of the fest or some shit, goes, "Man, you're going to Cedar Point." And he organised for Steve Eggs, Steve Geeker. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's a Cleveland fella, with horror stuff and his Comic-Con stuff and pop culture and all that, jazz and metal and all that. And he's got a regular pass, so he said he'd take us up, man. So Jim from Nunslaughters picked us up from our motel. He's taken us up to the Quicken, if it's still called Quicken Loan Arena or Quicken Homes Loan Arena, the Cleveland Cavs.
They might have changed it now. They always change with sponsorship.
That's what I thought. Probably not called Quicken Loans, but that stadium showed us where the Indians, or whatever you're allowed to call them now. I'm sorry, I'm not up to speed with that, but the Cleveland Indians.
Oh, the Guardians now. Yes, they got it. They changed the damn team name.
Because I think the same thing happened with the Redskins as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the Cleveland Indians Stadium. So I got to see that stadium and got to see, I like a bit of sport. I mean, I'm more into the Aussie rules football. I don't just seen that in cricket and shit, but you sort of still know what's going on with a bit of the baseball and basketball and shit. So it was sort of cool to see that. And he pointed out the Cleveland Zoo, took us to Steve Geeker's house, and freaking Steve just got us in the car. And we're heading towards Cedar Point, man. It's like, it's fucking blowing, I'm fucking blowing my mind. Like, we're going to fucking Cedar Point. And man, he fucking puts like puts terrorizer on him. Fucking got a bloody hash pipe. Bloody listen to friggin' terrorizer on tour in America, smoking a fucking pipe, going to friggin' Cedar Point, man. Like, the gig was fucking killer, but man, Cedar Point was killer. That's too. Yeah, man. The gig was. I've got to say, it's equal highlight. But man, that was like just 6 hours of upside down, inside out shit on the Top Thrill drag racer and shit. All this shit that I'd seen on the internet. So yeah, and then Jim ended up picking us up back from Steve's house that night. So we go chatting to Jim and all that shit that night again. And then we went home the next day. And I got home.
Did Jim take you to Skyline Chili or anything like that? Did you get to try any of those places?
No, It was after tea time, I believe. No, yeah, it was late. No, it was late when he got us from Steve's. I mean, I think we'd played a gig during the afternoon or some shit, but he come and picked us up. So he looked right after us, man. I met Jim once before when they played in Australia at Melbourne. And I got home. Went to bed after I got home. Jet lagged, had a few wild turkeys, gave the family a few presents, then I hit the sack. Got up the next day and heard about Jim's fucking stroke and shit, man.
Oh, yeah. Did you hear the new Nunslaughter record? Because it has a lot to do with Jim, the title and stuff. We had Dawn of the Dead on here, man, and he was telling us the story about the new album. And, it's obviously, that was, like you mentioned with Jim, that was a hard thing, man. I'm a big Nunslaughter guy, and, at least you have that memory, though. You got to go to Cedar Point with him. I mean, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, man. Like I spent I spent some good time with Jim, basically 48 hours before the stroke and shit happened, man. So, you know, just forever in me mind, man, forever in me heart. Fucking, he was a top bloke, man. Made me so welcome. You know, they don't make him like that very often, you know.
No, he was such a nice guy. And actually, Don was telling us, remember, Ed, that he had with Jim would just give away nonslaughter. Like, he was such a friendly guy that Don was telling us that he had to, like, sometimes corral him because he would just be giving away. Like, you would go to the merch stand and Jim would just hand you stuff. You know, he's like, take this. And Don would be like, what are you doing? But yeah, we heard all those stories, man. It was great.
Yeah, man. Yeah, look, well, he couldn't have done any more for me, man. But he completed that trip for me, you know, man. And yeah, it was fucking devastating.
What was your thoughts on? I have to ask because I know you come from a whole different part of the world. Like I said, tonight, all three of us got Ed's in Tampa, I'm in Lithuania, and you're in Australia. So we're all in totally fucking different time zones right now. But what did you think of American cuisine? Was it what you thought it was, or were you kind of not impressed? Or
Really didn't get to sample it, to be honest. It was just one of those things. So anyone who was at the Hell's Head Bash would know that selection of food there, and considering we spent 3 of our 5 days there, they had one gyros truck, man. So it was literally gyros or chips, and that was it for 3 days at that festival. And I wasn't that interested in eating at the festival much anyway. And you couldn't get full strength bourbon. You got alcohol rules and restrictions in Cleveland. It's different state to state. You can't call it whiskey. It's like 20% blended bourbon. Like, you need to scull it straight to get fucking buzz. So that was I mean, bourbon's cuisine, isn't it? And anyway, there was a pizza joint just near the motel we were staying at on Euclid Avenue. Pizza was it was good. It was, it wasn't wasn't that New York style one, which is probably the one I would have liked to have tried. Like it wasn't that much different to ours, But I think we invented fucking pineapple on pizza, man. So you can blame us for that shit if you want. But the pizza wasn't that much different. I think I might have had it on the way to Cedar Point. I have a feeling we went to. I don't think it was chicken filet. I think it might have been Burger King or something. So that was nothing special, nothing different to what we get here. The only thing that was a bit more exotic for me that I got to have, I think it's called a stromboli.
Yes, the stuffed pizza, basically, right?
Right. That was in the airport. Now, there's probably some Aussie telling me, man, stromboli, man, that's all over. No, man, it's not all over the place as far as I'm concerned. That's one thing that I've seen that I haven't really seen around much. So that's as exotic as I got, man, was stromboli. But it would have been nice to have some American barbecue. Actually, I think the sausages that was barbecued by this Argentinian fella that lived not lived, but was friends with Lou and Adam from Manticore after the gig. I think that was the best food I had, to be honest.
Right. And you mentioned bourbon, and you're not a beer guy, right? And so I've always read, so you could tell us because it's Foster's. You guys don't drink that shit back at home, right? That is like kind of like Corona in Mexico,
No, man. If Foster's relied on Australian for business, they wouldn't be here. It's exported stuff, man.
Sounds like Outback. Every Australian I've ever talked to said that Outback is not Australian. It's a fake because that's a restaurant here. Like the food is trash.
Yeah. Australia has enough similarities to America. Don't worry about that. And your Outback is a little different to our Outback. Partly, you're probably more of you are carrying guns to start with, and let's not talk about guns any further.
Everybody's got guns in America, even the kids.
Yeah. I knew I shouldn't even bring it up. Don't worry. There's still real traditional Aussie characters though up north, central, desert, and country. There's still the ockers, they call them ockers and stuff, mate. And even I talk a little bit that way at times, cut my words short and pretty casual. But there are the snakes are real, man. The spiders are real. The sharks are real. the crocodiles are fucking real too, eh?
Well, Florida, we got the alligators, so they're floating
What
around
are
during
they?
hurricanes and shit.
Yeah, can we have a movie called No, we're not going to have a fucking tornado with alligators. There's already a shark one. But no, man, I think our crocodiles would freaking swallow those alligators whole.
Yeah, there's a difference. There's definitely a difference. And you got actually someone just bought me a jar of Maramite. We just got at our house. I haven't tried it yet, right? So we got this. My wife's friend actually sent us a jar of this, and I haven't got the balls to eat it yet, though, man. But I've heard some mixed. The only thing I know about it is from the old Men at Work song, you know.
Yeah, now we need to be clear: is it Marmite or is it Vegemite?
Oh, Vegemite. I am sorry. Yes, a Vegemite sandwich from the song. So it's Vegemite.
Rightio, Vegemite. Rightio.
Yes.
You're too scared to try it?
I haven't tried it yet. I will. I'll try everything once usually, man. But I haven't tried it yet. But and when you were coming on today, I was like, I looked at that thing in our cupboard and I was like, I got to ask him about this, man. What do I put it on? Like bread or something?
Rightio, man. Then like spread it on really, really thick. Like eat it by the teaspoonful, man. Like you'll love it.
I have a feeling that's not going to happen.
Listen to Men at Work, bro.
I can't. It's not your first rodeo. Sorry, what was that, Ed?
Listen to Men at Work. They talk about
That's
it.
what we see.
Men at Work are the ones that tell you about it, right?
Yeah, but Vegemite sandwich. So with the old Vegemite sandwich, no, it's definitely a bread thing. You know, but some people think like avocado and Vegemite and stuff are good mixes. I used to have like cheese and Vegemite, but there's only one way to. You can argue crumpet or muffin could be involved instead of a piece of bread. But the only way to really try it and have it properly and maybe enjoy it is just toast, get some butter on that toast, and get a thin spread. Try and get it nice and mixed and melted in with the butter, right? You know, when you get that sort of spread mixing with the butter sort of shit, right? That's what you need to do with that fucker. And make sure it's thinly spread.
That tells you something right there. Thinly spread. That'll tell you something. So there's a, I was going to ask you about that, man. But, I figured I would throw that in during the interview a little bit because it was definitely something I wanted to mention. So, and you got, so you did the Hell's Head Bash in Cleveland. Then Brad leaves the band in 2018. And you guys get enough. Obviously, Chris enters the band as we talked about that time period. And in August, what you guys put out, 2024, you guys put out the Unholy Trinity compilation, right? Which 1,000 copies. And so what was that? That was like tracks from the Holy Trinity Denied demo, from Brutal Desecration, and I think one unreleased track you guys put on there.
Yeah. So the simple explanation of that disc is it features all studio recordings that have not appeared on CD. So Brutal Desecration, right? So it starts with Holy Trinity Denied. The first three tracks are Holy Trinity Denied. That's a demo from '97. Mm-hmm. Then we go on to the Brutal Desecration 7-inch, which was released on tape at one point from a Chilean label with the extra track, but that extra track hasn't really appeared anywhere else apart from a comp. So those 4 tracks from Brutal Desecration plus the 5th track from that recording, which never appeared on the 7-inch.
With the B-style mockery.
No. So demo, first 3 tracks, and the next 4 are Brutal Desecration 7-inch, but there's a 5th track that we recorded in that session for the Brutal Desecration recording.
Okay.
That 5th track is included. And then which only has ever really been released on a compilation once and on that tape release from a Chilean label years ago. And then there's Besieged, the recording from the 7-inch with Thronium, which you might be sort of more alluding to, because the split with Bestial did appear on CD, by the way, so that's why that doesn't appear. So then the split with Thronium, the Besieged track is on it, and the final track, the final track is one, we gave it a title especially for the compilation release. It's called Prelude to Destruction. But that was an instrumental track that we were we opened up a few gigs with it. Like we kicked off the gig with this intro. And when we went to the studio to record the split with Bestial Mockery, there you go, that's the track from this. There you go, that's the track we might have been alluding to, sorry. That was from the Bestial Mockery recording session. So Halo Black Goat and Mecha Demon recorded, and we recorded that intro. So there's no vocals or anything to it, but it's about a 2.5 minute piece which no one would have heard. Like, no one, literally. So yeah, that's the unreleased track. That's the unheard one you're talking about. The split with Bestial Mockery. Apologies for missing that it was the split with Bestial Mockery.
And that brings us to the new record, which is a fucking killer record. Came out October 18th. We actually, I think a couple episodes ago when it was released, before I even contacted you, we were talking about the record. Last episode we played, I think, Reap What You Sow. And then, the new record, man, we'll talk about this. First of all, artwork again by Mark Riddick, 8 tracks. We actually opened up the show tonight with Holy Orgy, which is an awesome song. First of all, how long did it take you to put this material together for this one? Indomitable, by the way, is the name of the record. Whoever hasn't heard it, on Hell's Headbangers. Again, came out October 18th.
Yeah, so Chris joined the band just before COVID kicked in, right? So just before that COVID bullshit fucked things up. We Jared and I had a couple of songs written. So we had Start to Indomitable, Speaking with the Dead, and Writhe in Pain. So they hadn't necessarily been completed, but Writhe in Pain was finished. Speaking with the Dead was mostly done, and Indomitable was, we say, maybe a third done. And then Chris joined, played a gig with Chrisian. He learnt the set to play a gig with Chrisian in our local town, and then that COVID stuff kicked in. And I don't know how harsh the restrictions were.
They were sending actual, where I'm at in Lithuania, they were sending drones by people's houses to make sure there wasn't gatherings of more than, I guess it was 4 people at that time period. So I don't know how it was in Australia, but it was. Now Florida was like the Wild West. I went back to Florida, then nobody gave a shit in Florida. It was like nobody gave a fuck about COVID there. But how was it in Australia?
Man, we had some of the toughest restrictions in the world. We basically we weren't allowed to visit anyone. I couldn't even have Jared, drummer. Couldn't even have him come to my shed. So I would sit there with my wife, my 2 kids. You're allowed to go out and get shopping and get booze, pharmaceuticals, go to the doctors, and that's about it. Like they and if you were single and you were fucking someone, then you could have that one person over. But then that was your bubble, man. That was your bubble.
That was it. Did you get sick at all? Did you want to catch it?
I got it eventually. But
yeah.
I
got it when I went back to Florida, of course. I went back to Florida. That's when I got it, when I got back to Florida, because there's no restrictions. Did they arrest you in Australia, Ed?
Didn't they arrest you if you were on the streets?
Yeah. I've got... Sorry, Ed?
Didn't they arrest you if you were walking on the streets or they caught you out, they would arrest you?
There was a bit of that going on, and but one of the things they had, right, so where I live, Geelong, they had so it's about an hour's drive to Melbourne, right? But, there's vast paddocks and space between sort of the outskirts of Melbourne before you get to the busy part of Geelong, right? So there's a fair gap between it. And they had a cut-off, right, that you couldn't leave that Melbourne sort of region unless you were working or medical or some shit. So they actually at some point had blockades on the main highway from Melbourne to Geelong and pulling everyone over and checking their legitimate purpose.
Did you guys get special cards and stuff? Like we had things on our phone to enter stores. You had to swipe it. Wow.
Yeah, we're going down shitty territory, but yeah, they made us get jabbed, forced it. Couldn't work a job unless you got 2 fucking jabs.
Yeah, we couldn't travel here really unless you wanted to do that. I had to do that because I had to go back to America. You really didn't have a choice, so you weren't getting on a plane.
No, so you get no jab, no work. They give you these cards you had to show, so you could go into a sporting event and all this shit, and 6 months later, didn't have to show shit. So, I can see different angles of different sides of certain things, but some things don't add up, hey?
Did you see any of the States sporting events? They had cardboard. So there was a period of time in the States where if you watched a sporting event, there was cardboard fans there. You can pay to have I could pay to have an Ed Webb at a sporting event, if I wanted to. And they would just put cardboard people. And it was that's when life felt fucking really crazy. I remember like just watching some of this shit, and I was like, man. And like all these bands are doing, which no offense to anybody who did them, we know some of the guys who did these kind of things, but everyone was doing live streams all of a sudden from their houses. Like everything was, it was just nuts. Everything was like changed. It was like a movie that you know, it was really like literally like a bad movie.
Yeah. No, it was shit times, and never had to encounter it before. So how do they manage these things? I guess. But then, how far do we go with that discussion? So I'm going to fucking move on from that one.
Where
Because
did you guys? How did you guys record the album during that time period? Did you guys? When did you
so,
enter this?
so we didn't. So basically, COVID slowed everything down, and as we've discussed earlier on in the interview, I'm not one to go and sit there and write 6 songs ahead, right? So those little fleeting moments, we managed to slot in a gig for a point when they removed lockdowns and shit. They used to have people you had to sit down gigs and masks and shit, but we managed to slot in a gig where we didn't have to do any of that bullshit. So the time we actually, that little window of time we had, we actually managed to sort of get a couple of rehearsals in and play a gig. But I wasn't going to race head writing songs, had a few bits and pieces and sort of pecked at bits and pieces. But it wasn't until COVID was lifted where we were jamming as a 3-piece again. And for me, that's where the magic sort of happens, man. Not sitting on a computer desk and not sitting there sending recordings to people, or getting in the jam room, and bouncing off each other and saying it in current time, there and then. What about this, going through it, discussing it, hearing it, playing it, all at the same time. So when that COVID stuff lifted, then it was a matter of moving on to those other ideas that we had floating. And then Jared got a little frustrated that I was getting a bit slow, so I went and smashed out The Path to Lucifer rather quickly.
Which we're going to play tonight, actually, when you, on the end of your segment. Great song.
Right. Well, that was the last song written, and I wrote that one, not in frustration, but I could understand Jared's frustration. Just want to get this fucking record done, man. So.
You're the total opposite. You're like, I'm not in a hurry. You're never like, that's kind of your, You're like,
Yeah, it's not just me. So I said, I'll get something happening, because if I knew I got that song down quick enough, we could sort of go book in the studio and refine those other couple of songs. So yeah, COVID was definitely a slowdown, and we were hit with pretty harsh extreme, and I couldn't even. And I'm not going to sit there and record a riff and start using drum machines and back and forth on computers and shit like that. Like, it's just not how I roll. But although we have advanced with our technological use, Destruktor, by actually we did demo vocals for Path to Lucifer before we went into the studio. I don't normally and Jared, we recorded a bit of a demo for those couple of songs just so I could get some vocal ideas happening. We don't normally do that, but we use that towards the end of it all. But first 3 songs were done before COVID, somewhat. Next 2 or 3 got developed straight after COVID, and then we smashed out those last couple and we went in and recorded finally. So took a bit
what
of time.
What studio did you guys go to?
We went to Toyland Studio this time. So that's the first time we've been there. They've done a lot of stuff over the years, like not just metal. And Adam Kalatis, the sound engineer, he's a bit of a whizzy. He does like commercial sports audio and stuff like that, like our big football leagues and cricket leagues and shit like that. So very good with his audio. And the first time we've used him, first time we've used that studio, and I think it helped provide something a bit different.
So right now it's out on what, CD and cassette. Of course, the download, the digital download, and you guys have vinyl on the way too, right? Coming from Hells. Yeah.
So tapes are in our hands. Tapes are available. CDs were delayed. There was a misprint, but they're hitting. They're expected to be mailed out. Like distribution wise, from Hells Headbangers on the 8th of November. So I hope to have that by the end of next week and ready to send out our parcels within Australia and shit and start getting that out there. And the vinyl will come out next month. Shirts are also out as well now. Sorry.
Hells has like 5 different shirts for you guys, I think, on their site.
That's good. That's good. That could keep them out of mystery for a while, but hopefully the Indomitable ones move quick and they need to do more. And I apologise. We're 3 minutes off me saying that the vinyl comes out next month because it's 3 minutes to midnight. And it's actually October 31, so I'm still a day off. It's fucking December. The vinyl will come out. So
happy Halloween, by the way. Do you guys celebrate Halloween, by the way?
It's become a thing. I think COVID helped make it a thing in Australia.
Same here in Lithuania. Yep.
Yeah, it's because the restrictions were sort of lifted around the time of Halloween, I think 2020, and because we had nothing to fucking do for all that time, as soon as we had an opportunity to do something, everyone just went wild. So Halloween is something that's just simmered and not been much of a thing for a long, long, long time. But now it's a bit of a thing.
Yeah, it's same here. It's like, it's becoming a thing here also. And you guys so with new albums out, and so you guys have any future like live shows coming up or anything? I know you guys played a few shows this year. I saw some dates you guys had played, but like, what do you guys have coming up in support of the new record? Any tours offered or any kind of like planning going on?
Yeah, so I haven't played many gigs recently. We did play with I Am Morbid about 12 months ago. Played with Psy about a year and a half ago. We played one other gig in Melbourne, just a sort of a smaller local gig, and then we just got back from Adelaide, the next the capital city, the next state across, about an 8-hour drive. We went and played with Nile.
Okay.
So that's sort of been the 4 or so gigs over the last couple of years. But we've got we're playing with Sinister in January. In discussions about playing up in Queensland. That's the state up the northern state on the east coast. We're looking at playing there. Just talking to someone about Sydney. So we'll look at playing 4 or 5, maybe 6 gigs in the Australian area over the next 6 months, and then knuckle down for winter, and we'll see what happens post for our winter, which is the middle of the year. And we'll see what happens the other side of winter. So, sort of around September, October. If there's, depending what sort of offers come out about and what's there, we might be able to do something a bit more substantial November next year. We'll see how we go.
Nice, man. Well, we're going to let you go here in a few minutes. We've kept you for a couple hours. And like I said, it was awesome to have you on, man. I do have to ask, out of Florida, man, is there any bands that who was your top couple bands that you grew up listening to out of the Florida area?
Morbid Angel.
Morbid Angel.
Morbid Angel was going to be number one, and I imagine it always will be. First song I got into was Rebel Lands from the Monsters of Death compilation. And not long after that, I heard Chapel of Ghouls and I go, well, they've got 2 killer songs already. So Morbid Angel hit for me. Deicide.
I see that Deicide thing behind you. Actually, yeah, the first 2 Deicides are flawless records.
And that's where I stop, and that's just, I was getting into Norwegian black metal at the same time, But Deicide first 2 albums, definitely. Morbid Angel. Even their latest stuff's still very good, but Covenant, Old as Madness, probably rule above all else. Formula's Fatal to the Flesh is probably a little underrated and pretty damn good album as well. Blessed's still cool, not as big on Domination. Yeah. But yeah, Deicide and Morbid Angel will have to be the 2 I pinpoint. Massacre from Beyond album, I've always loved. I've loved Rick Ross's leads and that sort of shit. They'll be my 2 or 3 top picks. But what else? I've got as I've spoken to with Ed, I do have some Monstrosity, and I've got some
the Diabolic period.
I've got some City of the Dead as well as trying to pull out, and the album you played on Ed was Supreme Evil. I've got that, and that's some of the best. That's some of the best second wave Florida death metal, if you want to look at it that way. It's obviously not from the early '90s, but 10 years later. But so yeah, there's a few things to get into, but that covers a few. I still like death, but I'm not one of those big death fans. Nocturnus, man, like I love the Key, but that's it.
I loved Browning's period with Morbid Angel. I thought, and the Key's a great record.
Yeah.
We were talking, I think me and you, I don't know if we were talking on the show or not, so I'll bring it up again. But, do you find is it hard for you to get into, there's so many bands out now, right? Because, back in the day, like you said, you'd have to search for this shit, right? You'd have to find these bands. Now you can find 35 bands in 10 minutes now, new bands. Do you find, is it hard for you really do you find yourself going back to the old records and not really focusing on the new releases?
Yeah, well, I'm not part of the Spotify generation, man, where they're getting jammed with all these new bands all the time. So I find that some people who listen to Spotify tend to be keeping up with that stuff more often, and I really don't like that format. Shitify, shall you say? Not my scene. It has its purpose, but I don't like it for people that aren't buying a CD or having an attention span right for music, and the single song stuff. That's just my attitude to it all.
The attention span's like 30 minutes now. Like we always talk about on this show, we've talked to many of our guests about this too, is when you put out a record, besides your diehard fans, you probably only have a couple weeks that people are like pimping out this. Like, you talked about Megadeth when they put out their new record. It's like a week or two. It's shoved up your ass and then it's gone. You don't even hear about it again.
Oh man! So I've been thinking about this with the releases of the album. So Nailed come out in 2008, Nuclear Storm early 2000, Opprobrium 2015, and Indomitable 2024. You're looking at some decent gaps in there between stuff, but assessing the scene in a way is so different from each release we've had. So, you've got the days of the tape trading and hearing back from someone 2 months later and people catching on a shit 2 years later, and, you're hearing bits and pieces and you're catching on to bits and pieces like 6 months, 2 years down the track. And then something like Nailed might come out and it was still, it was quicker in communication and stuff. You could get some stuff on YouTube, and there was, emails more common, and Facebook was just starting to come in. But there was still CDs were still well purchased, and vinyl hadn't quite kicked through there. So you had that sort of crossover digital period, and then a program was a few years gap between there, and say we might have sold say 1,000 less CDs from the last release, but those 1,000 or so had been picked up and a few more with the digital downloads that weren't available at the time of Nailed. And now I look at Indomitable coming out, and the second it comes out, there's already fucking 5,000 people that have heard this shit in a matter of 24 hours. You can't monitor it with all the different formats, but you just compared to say Indomitable, if you went and YouTubed Indomitable, it might fucking take a program, it might take 6 months for it to be a couple of thousand views, and then Indomitable comes out and there's thousands in 48 hours. It's like real jam down your throat, real fast food sort of environment, where it's almost like I don't really care about it so much, but it's really quick ego gratification, good vibes, positive shit, all these positive shit and all this kick-ass stuff being said, but it's all condensed into this really short period, man, So I sort of like the drip feed. But it's still cool to sort of have a different experience again. Like I said, podcast. Haven't done podcast before. Haven't had
first
launches.
One ever, by the way. Yes,
yeah,
this is the first Destruktor podcast.
Yeah. It's a different world again. So it's sort of interesting to sort of compare the different eras, because they have, with the gaps between albums, they're quite distinct, if you know what I mean.
Are you a fan of digital? Because I know personally, like I said, me and Ed are in some bands, and I'm never a fan of the digital release. I get it. I understand it. If you don't move with the times, you're going to be left behind. That's how it goes. But are you a fan of that? Or, obviously everybody would like to rather, I think, a physical product to be sold of their music, because it's, obviously we all grew up looking at covers and flipping it around and all that stuff. But how personally do you feel about that?
It's not my thing. Simple, as I don't I did have a Spotify account literally only for work purposes, because I used to work for a music magazine, so I sort of had to access artists sort of via that manner. But I don't care to download MP3s. I don't care about download codes. I don't think I've ever used a download code.
Yeah, same.
The only use for me, I don't mind YouTube, and that's probably because it was around when I was like early 20s, part of the reason. But if you're in the middle of freaking nowhere and you've got no access to anything, or you want to show someone something quickly, it has its purpose, I guess. So but as far as supporting bands by listening to a track on Spotify, if that floats your boat, go for it. But if I like it enough, I'd like to have a proper copy of it, and I'd rather listen from start to finish. without ads, without interruptions, and without being distracted even visually, because music is for your ears, man. And if you're listening to music with your eyes, I think you've missed the fucking point.
Wow. Goes back to the whole video thing as we were talking about, man. Like, you know, it just becomes people are like, you got to be visual, you got to be video, you got to. I like to sit back, close my eyes, and listen to it and picture whatever the fuck I want to picture, you know. And I mean, I don't, yeah, you know. So it's. So I have to ask you, was it this being your first podcast? Was it as bad as you thought it was gonna? Like, was it? Was it that?
Oh, it was absolutely marvelous. I probably swore a fair bit, but that's all right.
You want on here?
I'm not during fucking work hours, am I? Right.
Yes.
So I'll let it go. But while we're talking about no, it's been good fun. It's been pretty casual. I'm sure I've rabbited on a bit and fucking gone distracted and gone left when I should have gone right. But you've got some information out of me, and if people are interested to hear that information, well, it's been a success, hasn't it?
Right.
So you know, it's gone well, man. Like I hope you've enjoyed having the chat, and I hope the people listening find it a little bit interesting, at least in some way or another, or have enlightened them to something that may have surprised them.
Where can they find? I know you're not a big social media guy, but in general, where if anybody wants to find anything Destruktor, obviously merch wise, you can definitely go to Hell's Headbangers and find a bunch of shit on there. But what else would you have to do that awful promotion thing? What would you tell people to go to, Destruktor fans?
Wow. Facebook is Destruktor Official. Instagram is Destruktor Official. But, you know, you could always write a letter. P.O. Box 3152, Warn Ponds, Vic 3216. You look at this mailbox, all of a sudden get flooded by all these people keen to put a pen to paper.
I'd be impressed.
Yeah. Man, I tell you, with the Indomitable layout, there's no digital information on it at all. It's got our address. It's got our postal address on it. No Instagram or Facebook tags.
Just the way, doing it the old school way, the way we all grew up.
Yeah, buddy. They don't need that information on layouts, do they? I mean, everyone just goes to Google and types it in anyway. So
you can pretty much find it these days, and everything is at your fingers, man. But Ed, anything, you know? First of all, again, Glenn, I'll say this: I really appreciate you coming on tonight, man, and hanging out for this long. Like I said, I was glad you got back to me the same day. You know, we're always given a list of bands that we can talk to, and for us, like, there's a lot of bands that we want to talk to that aren't on his list, because for us, we like to have people on the show that we listen to, you know. And when you agreed to do it, man, I was stoked. And when you said you hadn't done one before, I was like, okay, man, that's cool, you know, because these days you can find a million interviews all over the place. But you are definitely with Destruktor. It's not like that. Even when I was like getting ready for the show, there's, you know, far and few. Like just with your live shows, you guys aren't putting everything out all the time for everybody. So I want to personally thank you myself for coming on the show and giving us your time. You know, that's definitely appreciated. Ed, anything that you can think of that you want to mention?
It's still early here, and I'm very surprised. I've been up since 4 a.m, so yeah, it was killer. I'm glad we did it, because Tony's done the ones where he's been up at 3 in the morning, you know, catering to the U.S. time, and I can tell we had one that kind of fell apart on us, and he had drank a Red Bull prior, and he's like, fuck, now I'm wired and I can't go to sleep. Man.
It was like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, doing this is for me, being old school. I wish I could have seen stuff like this when I was younger. And I like the fact that we do it the way we do it, because I listen to a lot of this shit in my car. So you're not really supposed to be looking at a screen while you're driving. So it's good to be able to drive and just listen, and it makes the drive more enjoyable. And a lot of people really dig delving into history, and your history's, you know, you got a long history, even though you might not have 2,000 albums. You got a long history, and that's what people want to hear about. So it was killer. It was honor. It was very, you know, it was an honor to have you on, for sure.
And a great band, man. Great band, dude. The new record, Indomitable, is awesome.
I played it at the gym today. I was crushing it at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. And let me tell you something. It takes something like that sometimes to, as I've told Tony, we've talked about this many times, because I go on Spotify, I pull up whatever's new, I try to give it a listen. If it's something that I'm, I recognize, or even if it's something new, I try to give it a listen, because you never know if you find that needle in the haystack. Every now and then something comes out that's killer, and you're like, holy crap. But I knew you were coming on, so I've been listening to it, and I put that on this morning, and boy, my legs are burning right now from that workout. So yeah, definitely, it's awesome. It was very proud to play that this morning, because my ass got kicked, and I love it.
Good to hear, man. Good to hear. A lot of work went into it, but it's good to hear it's getting out. And I think there's were you rather familiar with this beforehand, or is this the first time?
I was into you guys for years, but I think I think Ed was
I knew you were.
Nailed. I think was the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no idea. Who knows what, mate? I've got my head in the sand. I just do me thing, man. But glad the.
Well, I've been touring the world for 10, 15 years now, maybe more. So I get to hear a lot of cool shit, and I heard you. I mean, way back in the day. And when Tony said you were coming on and that you had a new record, I was even more, because your last record was almost 10 years ago. So it was definitely, it was definitely killer. Like Don puts out something every 5 seconds.
We had Dawn of the Dead for 5 hours on here because the discography was like, you had to like pack a lunch.
Ridiculous. It was great. But you know what? The guy was, talking to him is everybody we've had the pleasure to have on here. It's been, like this. It's just been very informative, and we get to learn a lot about the ins and outs that you don't get to learn from the internet, because the internet only tells you so much. So it's good to hear stuff. And, I know Australia is a beautiful place. And you guys got Chris Hemsworth. So, you got somebody killer. I saw him yesterday in a weather ad. The lady's doing the weather, and he pops up there, and he just says, "Hey!" He starts taking the mic and doing the weather, and I'm like, "That's Australia. It's killer place, except for your spiders. You can throw those in the trash, but everything else is I'm not going in the water.
We don't have brown recluses though.
Yeah, they fucking sneak in your bed and bite your ass.
Yeah, those are fuckers. But those big ones, man, those are. Those are things you see in your nightmares, so I'm good with that. I'll stick with the little ones.
We got the funnel webs are pretty ugly looking bastards, mate. They're pretty dangerous, but we don't get the funnel webs down where I live. But red backs and the white tails, they're real, man. They float around a bit.
I'm good.
Yeah.
No, all good. No, been a pleasure. Fellas,
man, it's been awesome having
you,
dude. We love the album. We're going to, like I said, if you ever want to come back on, I know you don't do much podcasts, but you have an open door. You're welcome here, man, whenever you want to hang out. Next time, we probably won't keep you for 2 hours because we already know a shitload about you that you've shared with us, but we'll bring you on, whenever you want to hang, man. And tonight we're going to play on the way out. Glenn, we're going to say goodbye to you while this song's playing, but we're going to play the last song you wrote for the record, right? The Path to Lucifer. Yeah. From Indomitable, from Destruktor. Everybody hasn't heard it. Like I said, it came out October 18th, 2024. Vinyl's coming out soon. You could get it on cassette. And I mean, again, man, Glenn, thanks a lot. We appreciate you having you on, man. We will definitely keep in touch with you. And anything else you want to say before we let you get out of here?
Nah, go fucking check out Indomitable. Smash some good fucking metal. Eat
and don't
fucking
drink
nice
Foster's.
Meat. No, don't drink Foster's. Drink bourbon.
There you go.
Eat a fucking good steak, eh?
And don't go to Outback.
Yes, don't go to Outback. So we're gonna say we're gonna
keep away from that fucking snakes.
Keep away from the snakes, yes. So we're gonna play Destruktor here. We're gonna say goodbye to Glenn while we're playing this. But for everybody else, this is The Path to Lucifer. Album came out again October 18th, 2024 on Hell's Headbangers. This is Destruktor from the Indomitable record, The Path to Lucifer. We'll be back with me and Ed on the Tampa Morgue after this track. See you later, Glenn.
Good. See you later.
That was The Path to Lucifer from Destruktor off the Indomitable record that came out a couple weeks ago on Hell's Headbangers. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. And yeah, man, fucking hanging out with Glenn was cool. Very cool guy. What did you think, Ed?
Yeah, for his first podcast, we broke his cherry pretty well.
Yeah,
Great job.
man.
Great job. Yeah, and he was, it's weird because you look at a guy like that and you're like, how do you have that long of a career without having Dawn of the Dead type of
discography?
Releases? Yeah, I mean but like he said, he's very meticulous in his material and what he puts out, and I'll tell you what, man, I can highly respect that, because I know when you rush something, it usually years later you go, I fucking hate that song and I'm never ever going to play it. And we've been there. We've got a couple tunes that we always go, whether it's lyrically, musically, or all of the above, you know what I mean? We've said, how many times I've said, let's play that song, and you're like, I'm not fucking playing that song again, ever. Like, I'm never playing that song again.
And that always pisses it. That's always a rough thing, because some people, everybody likes different songs, right, in the band. Right. So it's like, but I think the thing with Glenn too is he, if you look at him, he even said it several times during the interview, I believe too, is he's never in a rush. And I tell you, all three of those records are killer records that they released, and it shows that there's no filler on those albums. And the new one, there's a lot of killer tracks on it. Even when we were getting ready for the show tonight, I was like, there's a couple other tracks I could have played tonight. I didn't know, I was like, Speaking with the Devil is a great song. We actually opened up again the whole show with Holy Orgy. Reap What You Sow, I believe we played 2 episodes ago when we were talking about Glenn coming on first. The whole new record is awesome, man. Out on Hell's Headbangers. And it was awesome. I'm happy he joined us. Very easy to get him on too, man. It was very easy to get him on. So, anybody who hasn't checked out Destruktor, definitely check him out. Great band from Australia. Like I said, all 3 records, man, nailed. If you want to start out at nailed, it's an awesome debut from them. And so hope everybody enjoyed that. Again, Glenn, we definitely appreciate him giving us his time. And Ed, man, so another show coming to an end, man. Episode 65 for us. We have, we're working the next 2 weeks to get ready for get November all stocked up. Flying back to Florida tomorrow. So of course we got to talk about Swarm Fest, which is, we've been plugging every episode. For those who have listened, they know. And I do want to say, man, I definitely appreciate everybody who listens, because we've been getting some emails lately of people who listen every week. And it means a lot, because when you start doing these shows, like we always say, man, you're just throwing it out there, just doing it. And there's not many, it's fucking what it is. But we've really grown a loyal fan base, or loyal listeners. I want to call them that, because I hate the word fan, really. Supporters of the show, people who check it out every week. We definitely appreciate it, and that's why we do it. So Ed, let's talk about Swarm Fest, which is, I'll let you run the spiel. I'll just say that it's at the Brass Mug in Tampa, Florida, and I'll let you do the rest.
Yeah, 30 bands, 3 days. Friday, the 22nd of November, through the Sunday, the 24th. Doors are at 6, it looks like, every night. Actually, I take that back. The doors are at 4 on Sunday. Early show. But yeah. Got to cut that shit out. She didn't know I was doing a podcast. That's all right. So yeah, it's going to be 3 days of mayhem, and I'm just going to go through the top bands that are headlining, besides the mighty Generic Christ, because we should be headlining. But I take a backstage to all these guys. I'm not going to cry. Just kidding. But yeah, I'll just go through the fucking thing. Fuck it, because I don't want to leave anybody out. Starting Friday, Tunnel of Set, Formulist, Sadistic Vision, MRSA, Grave Rot, Josh Jones, our buddy
from Grave Rot,
Ars Antigua, Santanas, Lethal Prayer, Coridia, Pessimist, and Dead Speak. That's Friday. Saturday, Voidrium, Vacious Depths. We'll have that guy on very soon. the
Next week.
Noctambulant. Yep. The mighty fucking Generic Christ. God, I don't know why I like those guys so much. It's crazy. I have all their records too, dude. That makes it even better. I even have the actual records. That's what's cool.
Yes, you do.
Hibernus Mortis, Druid Lord, our buddy Ronnie, and Gene, of course, from Perdition Temple. Mike Browning and Nocturnus AD, Promethean Horde, and ending the night is Geigen. Yay.
Geigen from Chicago. Well, no, from
Chicago.
Florida, I guess you'd say. I don't know where you would. I guess you would say Florida. I don't know. It's where they kind of.
He's from the United States. How about that? He's somewhere in the United States.
There
and
you
then
go.
Sunday, this way we don't fuck it up, right? And then Sunday, Sacralus, Reptilian War Machine, Ejequidator, Virulence, Sadistic Force, Interceptor, which we'll have that guy on as well, Impurity, Narcotic Wasteland, which, man, we have all these
Dallas
guys
will be on next week. Yeah, Dallas will be on next week.
Sorcerer, and then, of course, the Mighty Nasty Savage closing it out on Sunday. So, yeah, I mean, $60. I think it's what, $60 for tickets, $75 if you buy a shirt. That's for the 3-day pass, and then I believe it was $25 and $35. I can't remember what the other one was. If you wanted the shirt, but for the single day pass,
it's a little bit. It's like $15 extra for the shirt.
Yeah, so I know it was 60 and 15 for the shirt, so 75 for the 3-day pass and a shirt. Which is, if you think about it, man, getting a shirt with all the bands on it for $15 that's pretty cheap, man. Because I can tell you, when I go to festivals and you try to get a shirt with all the bands on it, it's usually $35-$40. So that's, you know what, Nick? You got my $15 because
I have a draw of shirts with. I have a draw. There you go. I have a draw full of those shirts. You know, whenever we played festivals, they always put the logos on the back, and I actually don't wear my band shirts ever. Which, I mean, I think I've wore them around the house maybe one. Like, I know I wore some Flesh Reaper shirts in the past too and stuff, but I have a draw filled with those kind of shirts because we did. I think the last Swarm Fest Nick did. He had the shirts with the logos on the back. When we did the Florida with the festival at the Cuban Club, the Florida Metal Fest with Obituary and all them, they had the shirts too, if you remember correctly, with the logos on the back, I believe. But I do have a draw with a bunch of those festival shirts. I guess I would call them.
Yep.
I always kept all those. But so it's 3 days. I mean,
you guys from New Jersey have draws. We in the rest of the world have drawers, but you have a draw. So just so everybody knows, he's not drawing on paper. He's got a draw that you pull out. That's what we say in Jersey. You got a draw, not a drawer, a draw. I just wanted to be clear for in case people are like, what's he drawing on the shirts for?
What the
I don't
fuck
understand
is he talking about?
Jersey talk, baby.
It's been a long week, man. It's only going to get longer.
For you, it is.
After
17 hours at the airport.
Yes. Well,
yeah, it's going to be good to see you, brother. It's going to be
Germany
good to
customs
see,
is always rough. Time. Yes, no, same, man. It's been a long time, and looking forward to jamming with you guys. And I think that's kind of what we have for tonight, right?
Oh yeah, no, listen, man. We're spread thin because we don't have a whole lot of. I mean, believe it or not, it's a very oh god damn it.
What's your dog's name that's making an appearance?
Peanut. That's Peanut out there.
There you go.
And Peanut's going to get a boot in his ass in about 2 seconds.
I don't think that's Peanut's first appearance, but anybody who's heard of the dog in the past, that's Peanut joining us, Ed's dog. But yeah, so we have, like I said, we have next week we do have Austin Thomas coming on from Vicious Depths. We have Dallas Tuller Wade coming on from Narcotic Wasteland. X Nile. We'll talk to those guys on next week's show. Then we'll have Nick Goodyear on the week after that. We'll promote it on our Instagram page. Everybody can find all the information there. Also, you can always go back and listen to our past shows. There's tons of them. I'm not going to run through them all right now, but you'll find stuff from Snowy Shaw to Chris Reifert to David Howard Thornton, who played Art the Clown and Terrifier. Terrifier 3, too, is still killing it in the box office. It's just killing it. It's a bunch, like I said, bunch of old episodes, everything from members of Nasty Savage to, I mean, just
That takes
tons
an
of,
hour just to go through them.
Yeah, last week I went through them and I was like, I started getting ready to choke. I was like, man, there's a lot of names to spit out. I was like,
Now we're at 65, baby. We're at 65.
Now we're at 65. Again, we really thank Glenn from Destruktor for coming on and hanging out. Everybody who listens, we appreciate you. Definitely go check out the Destruktor record, Indomitable, that just came out on Hell's Headbangers. And Ed, I think we're going to get out of here, right, man? I'll see you in a few days.
You will. And we'll get the rest of these episodes hammered out for everybody.
Until Thanksgiving.
You got it.
Cool, man. Everybody, thanks for listening. As always, you can find us on Instagram or email us at thetampamorgue@gmail.com. Instagram, too, we'll answer there. We do have other pages. Facebook page, we don't update too much. We really should. You can check us out there. And everybody, we'll see you next week. Ed, anything else?
That's it, man. Let's get you to America.
Peace, man. You guys have a good night. Thanks for listening again to the Tampa Morgue.
See ya.
This is King Fally from Deceased, and you just listened to another episode of the Tampa Morgue. Tune in next week and stay fucking dead.